This tea is so good. Oh, hi, I didn't see you there. Welcome to another episode of Live Coding in Atari. No, that's not this stream. It's called Old Games on a Weekday. I'm your host, as always, Mark W., etc. And tonight we're going to do some live coding in Atari BASIC. Why would I ever do such a thing? Because I'm a little wacky. But, where did my emulator go, actually? Here it is. Yeah, this is the classic thing. This is what you see. It's almost iconic. What you see as soon as you turn on your Atari 8-bit computer, you see this nice blue screen, and it says ready. And that's how you know you're ready to rock. Let me turn off my phone notification, because it's just a thing. As soon as I go live, people are like, hey, Mark, what are you doing tonight? Not anything involving you. Go away. I'm not going to play Wordle. All right. So, yeah, this is my kind of weekly stream where I play retro games. A retro gaming stream, if you will. And well, this is only my second time doing a live coding stream, but here I am. Don't mind that. You're not supposed to see that. I was going to share this with some of my friends in Slack real quick. Especially Andy likes to join when I link him to this. So bear with me a second. All right. That out of the way, why don't we begin? Yeah, so this is gonna do some live coding. Atari BASIC. It's a primitive language for a primitive computer, but it's a lot of fun to work with when you don't find yourself wishing you had some modern syntaxes or constructs to work with, or a lot more RAM to work with. That's okay. It's fun to play with this. To me, this is kind of revisiting where I got started in programming. I program all day for a living, more or less. My title is software engineer. And you're not literally always programming as a software engineer, but it's kind of the main focus of what you do. It's almost like splitting hairs if we get into what else I do, like documenting things and reviewing others' code and attending boring meetings and attending more boring meetings and then attending meetings about how you should have more or fewer meetings. You know, you can argue about that in a meeting. Anyway, but none of that happens today because I'm going to just fiddle around with Atari BASIC. I also don't get a paycheck for this, but this is more fun. So last time I did this, it was September of last year, and I modified a game called Gambler, which was a game by SoftSide. SoftSide was this company. They published a magazine every month. Maybe it was every other month. I don't really remember. I was very young at the time. We're talking, you know, diapers were a recent memory when I started playing with Atari computers. And SoftSide, yeah, my dad subscribed to SoftSide. You could get the magazine and you could type in all the code. You could transcribe it right from the magazine, or you could also just order the tapes. They would have cassette tapes that had all the source code on it, and you would put it into your Atari cassette player. It would take like 10 minutes sometimes to load a program, and it would make horrible grinding sounds like "beep," but it would work eventually, or it would not work and you would have wasted 10 minutes of your life. Just to be clear, it wasn't always 10 minutes to load a program. It was often maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, but it depended on the size of the program. But let's see, get back on track. You know, a lot of these BASIC games, BASIC is an interpreted language. And without getting too much into the technical weeds, that means it's kind of, there's another program interpreting your code on the fly rather than you making really low-level code that the machine knows how to understand. So it's slower, it's not as powerful, and we're talking about a machine from 1979 to begin with. So basically you have to keep your expectations sort of low when you play games made in BASIC. And yet I did play a lot of games in BASIC. It was fun, and part of the fun was I could look at the source code. You would just type list, and you could see the source code of any game. I don't have anything loaded in memory right now, but you would do that, and it would show you the source. And it was fun transcribing the programs from magazines and just trying to write my own. And again, this is how I got started. This is what you see right here. This is the screen where I spent hours trying to figure out what this meant and blah, blah, blah. What go to meant and what go sub meant and all that kind of stuff. If then and if then else and whatnot. So yeah, I guess we could just jump into it. But yeah, my career today basically comes all the way back to what I played with here. If you really trace the ancestry, sort of. And I'm sure a lot of other people who are about my age also learned on BASIC on Atari 8-bit computers or other 8-bit computers such as Commodore or Apple computers or whatever, TRS-80, this and that and the other thing. And also even, in somewhat later machines, people did use BASIC or get started on BASIC. They might have used QBasic or GW BASIC in MS-DOS, on a PC or whatever. Anyway, Ryan says in the chat, by the way, hello to Eric and Ryan who are already chatting away. Ryan says, very nostalgic for games on cassettes. I assume VIC-20 stuff must have been BASIC too. Well, not everything for the entire machine would be BASIC. I don't think for VIC-20. Pretty much everything on an 8-bit computer falls into two main categories. You would have the basic code. I mean, I'm probably oversimplifying, but basically you'd have the basic code and you would have the machine code. And another language such as C would compile to the machine code. And that would be the tighter code that's talking to the machine more directly, and therefore it's faster and more powerful and stuff like that. And you have more control over the memory. So you can really kind of make the machine do what you want. As perhaps an analogy, if you hear about people who love cars, they talk about they love a manual transmission because they feel like they have a tighter control over the machine as opposed to automatic transmission, which is that's just what the masses use. They don't really know what to select to really drive the power of the machine. Maybe that's a roughly approximate analogy. Anyway, right, but yeah, BASIC was around on a lot of machines. Again, Apple, Atari, Commodore, and you could also have alternate versions of BASIC. For example, this is Atari BASIC I'm going to play with, but there was also Microsoft BASIC. You could load that into memory and use Microsoft BASIC. And yes, Microsoft was making software for other machines that didn't run on MS-DOS. So yeah, there is a Microsoft BASIC I could play with on Atari sometime. But I'm not going to do that tonight. What I'm going to do is play with, like I said, Atari BASIC. And I'm going to start by loading my Gambler program, which we're going to continue. I'm going to continue from where we left off last time. And last time we had a lot of fun. At least I had a lot of fun. I hope some of you did too. What is Gambler? I guess I should explain it very briefly for those who are new. And it's going to load up in a moment. But essentially, it's a game where you start with $100. It's you and the Atari-controlled computer, and up to 3 other people sitting next to you, hot seating it, or couch co-op, whatever you want to call it. It's not co-op; they're against each other, and it's just kind of you play a bunch of little chance mini games, like you're rolling dice, and the high roller gets the pot of money, or you watch some horses race across the screen and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun to me as a kid. The reason why I revisited this game is because, at least in the realm of Atari BASIC, I think it was my single most favorite game. So one of the mini games is horse racing, and what we did last time, we spent the entire 2 or 3 hours doing this, but we got it working. Is we made it so there's an optional feature where you can buy a special horse feed for your horse that races in these horse races. And it makes your horse go faster. That's the idea. And now that the game is loaded, we can try it out with our special horse feed. And actually, we didn't finish the entire feature online. I did a little bit of work after the fact to kind of wrap up the feature. So what you can do is, I'm just going to play one player just to demonstrate how that looks at this point. Now, if you weren't here last time, you didn't see this being coded at the time, but that's okay. You can check it out anyway. So what you see here is this is my turn. I have $100 and I can buy lottery tickets, up to 3 of them. They cost $20 each. Actually, they're normally $10 each, but I decided to bump them to 20. That was I think that was the first feature I did. It was just as a very, very simple basic thing. Let's make the lottery tickets cost more, because they're very they're kind of like a no-brainer thing. You would spend $10 each on up to 3 tickets. You start with $100, and when a lottery takes place, which randomly is randomly one of the mini games that gets chosen from time to time, you would typically win 50, 100, or 150 bucks. It was a great investment. So I decided maybe kind of like a balancing factor. I would make them cost 20 each. But now we have this other choice here too, which is, would you like to buy special horse feed, which will improve your horse's speed by a whopping 33%. And you might wonder how I arrived at that particular number. Basically some trial and error that I did offline. It was my first attempt, I think I made it like the speed was doubled or something insane. And essentially, if you had a boosted horse who had this special horse feed, who knows what's in it, by the way, you would win 100% of the time or very close to it. So I decided, well, let's make it so that if you have horse feed and nobody else does, you win about 50% of the time. Now, there's always 6 horses in the race. So I tweaked, I just experimented and tweaked it. So I settled on your speed is increased by 33%. And let's see how that looks. You receive the feed for your racing horse. Now, this is the game right here, right? But I have a special hack in place right now. It's kind of like a debug. All it is a go-to statement, really. But it's like a little trick I added to debug, which is none of these games will get loaded no matter what we land on here. So you press the button and this cursor goes blip blip. But I made it so that it always goes to horse race for now. And that's a good thing to do for testing. You do things like that. And I suspect that's why some games like some console games, for example, they might have like a cheat code to jump to any level. It helps you to test. If you can just go to whatever the thing is that you modify or that you're working on. Anyway, so everybody's bet $20. The winner will receive 100. And now my Mark W horse has the special feeds. So what happens, the logic the game implements is there's 6 horses, and every turn it randomly decides one of these horses to bump up just a little notch like that. And maybe this one will go next time. Then this one goes. Maybe this one goes again. He's over here. So the logic I added is every time a boosted horse is selected to get bumped up, there is a 1 1/3 chance, and again, I made this automatic at first, but I tweaked with the probability. There's a 1/3 chance that it goes an extra space instead. It's something like that anyway. I haven't looked at the code in a while. But it's something like that. So, that said, why don't we watch what happened? And also, I decided to make what we were calling speed lines. I remember Eric and I were joking about that. They look kind of like this red thing that I'm showing, except they don't look great. They almost look like he's gonna be dropping droppings as he goes. Let's just see what it looks like. See, every time that booster kicks in, a speed line is drawn, and it looks like a dropping. It draws a horizontal line either kind of high up or low randomly. And I had in my mind this kind of idea that it would look kind of like this, but it just looks like he's dropping poops around. And that's okay. We're gonna leave it like that because it's fun. It's funny. But, if I really wanted to make it look like what I imagined, I'd probably have to spend a lot of time figuring out how I could make that work visually. And Ryan says, oh, poker party. So that's it. I won, but it wasn't a guaranteed win. Again, I made it so you win about 50% of the time if you're the only one who has horse feed. If there's multiple people with horse feed, then, you have to compete with them as well. So the Atari takes his turn, and you can see it automatically buys every lottery ticket. That's the logic it employs. And so I decided to follow that same sort of logic for the Atari. And that was automated by it. I was not pressing anything. It always buys the special horse feed as well. I could make the logic more advanced, like, I don't know, if it has money above a certain number, it'll buy it. Maybe if it has at least 50, it'll buy the horse feed. I don't know. But, this is a very simple game, and the Atari opponent is just kind of like, just so you have someone to play with if you have no friends. So now the Atari is the only one with the horse feed, because I used up mine from last time. Now you can't actually see the both of us, Mark W and Atari, with the horse feed at the same time because I have it automatically going to the horse races every single time we take a turn. If I disable that, then you might see it once in a while that we both had the horse feed. But I'm going to move on from that and try to write a brand new feature. Look, Atari have negative $20 now. And so I'm happy to take some suggestion if anyone has any ideas. I have my own idea. It's going to be a little more complex than the horse race change, the horse booster, and it's definitely going to be more complicated than the lottery ticket price modification. That one was super simple. But, I'm willing to take requests. It's just keep in mind, it's definitely extremely easy to make something more complicated than it sounds. And any new feature has to kind of play well with the pre-existing stuff that's in the game, the framework in which the game, is run. For example, you might think offhand, hey, how about we make a game of blackjack, right? It's gambler. Well, that sounds great, but now we have to think about cards. The game doesn't have playing cards in anything. Even though Ryan said, oh, poker party doesn't work with cards. You actually roll dice. And if you get it, if you roll, I don't remember how many you roll. Maybe you roll 5 dice. If you roll a pair, you get a pair. If you roll 3 of the, 3 fives, you get a 3 of a kind. And then, the 3 of a kind would beat a pair and so on. So it's kind of like pseudo poker. And Ryan said, I just searched for the game. You're posting Atari Age, the second thing that comes up. Yeah, I mean, this is an obscure thing that I have trouble finding any info about besides my own post. If you really wanted to dig, I think you'd have to include the word SoftSide. There's also a couple of other later games called Gambler as well that I've seen for the same line of computers. So that kind of can confuse your search. I think at least one of them was a commercially available product as well. So that probably sort of eclipses this one in searches. But why don't we get to coding? Or let's talk about our feature first. Now, here's the thing that maybe not everyone knows if you're not used to programming is you can't just program without having some idea of what you're programming. I mean, you could if you're just playing around, but my idea is since the game already has a bunch of mini games that involve dice, let's go with that again. Most of them are extremely simple and 100% chance-based. So I thought about what can I do to make it a little less chance-based? Make a new game that's a little less chance-based that rolls dice without it being crazy complicated. So I was thinking about there's one game where all you do is you roll a die. Each player rolls a die and the high roller wins some money. So I roll, I get a 1. And then the Atari comes along and gets a 4. Okay, Atari wins the money. That's it. So I thought about what about something like that, but add a little bit of skill to it. And again, I don't want to make it too complicated. And part of what can make something complicated is the rules. Are the rules difficult to code? You also have to think of the user interface. We have a very simple user interface in this particular game, graphically, as well as how does the user input information. You're essentially just typing stuff in a prompt. Or there is existing code that rolls a die. It shows the die flipping around through all the different sides. Just really quick. You see 1, 6, 3, 4, 2, and you press a key to make it stop. So I kind of want to stick with those parameters without adding any drastically new interface thing to it. So I'm going with the dice rolling. And what I thought I would do, what might be fun, is something a lot like the high roller that I just said, where you take a die and you roll it. But here's what we're going to do. Every player, starting with, I don't know who, but that's something to work out. Maybe it's always, maybe it's randomized. Maybe it goes with the order in the internal array in which the players are organized. Maybe it goes with the first one. Each player, though, will decide, do you want to buy a die for the purpose of this high roller with buy-in? Let's call it a high roller with buy-in. We need a snappier name than that. For now, we can call it that. What you do is we're going to go through every player in a series of rounds. And what you can do is spend $10 to buy a die or not. So I can say, all right, I'm going to buy a die. My right hand is going to be my dice. And the Atari is going to be in my other hand. Just to portray the idea. So I say, okay, I buy one die, $10. Atari goes, he goes, okay, I buy one die, $10. Now it's back to me, and I can say, all right, I'm buying another die, $10. And now the Atari says, okay, I'm buying another die, $10. I say, it's back to me. We have another round. I go, okay, I'm quitting now. And now the Atari says, okay, I'll quit too. And now we each roll 2 dice, and the high roller wins from that. And perhaps the dice that we buy go into the pot, and the winner takes all of that. And we could keep going, right? We could go, I've got 3 dice. And then the Atari can decide to match mine and get 3 dice too. And, then I have to get into where do I want it to stop? Should there be a hard limit of 5 dice? Should I let people go forever? If I can go forever, I need to figure out how in the user interface to make that work. Or no matter what, I have to consider how I want to make it work in the user interface. But if I want it to be limitless, that could be an additional complication. So maybe for starters, I'll cap it at, let's say, I don't know, 2 or 3. 2 is kind of lame though. Let's cap it at 3. Then I'll see if I can expand it from there, perhaps. And Ryan says, I still play Yahtzee on my watch. I think it holds up as a simple board game. Cool. All right, so forget about horse feed for now. We're going to hit the break key. Ryan says, I wonder how many dice an Atari 8-bit would have the processing power to handle. Well, really, the way I plan to do it is 1 die roll at a time. And it wouldn't really be doing any special process. Basically, the processing power is more or less limitless because it's only going to be handling 1 die at a time. But it's more about how many, basically how to display it, how to organize this all visually and stuff like that. And there's also the matter of memory, right? I want to keep track of all the dice rolled, and that would be pretty minimal, quite honestly. I could probably easily make it store thousands of dice that are rolled. And I just plan on keeping a running total of the dice, not necessarily each individual roll, so that makes it a lot easier. In other words, I would have to have different, if I wanted to keep track of all these 5 dice I'm holding, that I'm not really showing very well because they're going to fall. If I want to keep track of the individual values on each, that's that could potentially be more complicated and take up more memory than if I just keep one big running total. And Ryan asked, could it roll like $1 million though? I mean, $1 million, well, $1 million would be stretching it, but it depends. If we're just keeping a running total, you would have to do some special tricks to store a number that high, because that could go from, we only have, I think we only have 8-bit integers. No, we have 16-bit integers. Yeah, I don't know. I have to get into the nitty-gritty, but we might only have up to 16-bit integers, which means up to about 65,000. The number 65,000 can be stored in a single variable. Something like that. It can depend on a few different things, like whether we allow negative numbers to be stored or not. So you could probably do it, but you'd have to do special tricks like store part of the number in this variable. And that's like the lower part, and another part of the number in this other variable. That's like the higher part. In other words, imagine I had, to give a simple example, imagine I could only, how do I explain this? Well, let's say that I'm a person who's really dumb and I can only remember a number between 1 and 10. And my boss has another person like me as well. And he wants us to collectively remember the number 15. But I go, oh, so the boss says, Mark, you remember the number 10. And you, Ryan, you remember the number 5. And we go, okay, boss, that's as high as I can go. I remember 10. The other guy remembers 5. And now the boss later on comes back to us to get the number. And go, okay, what's the number I asked you guys to say? And I go, I'm 10, boss. And Ryan goes, I'm 5, boss. Now the boss can figure, okay, now I know what the number is. It's 15. I don't know if that was a helpful analogy, but we're not going to go to anything like that. That's tricky and painful. But why don't we try coding this? What I actually want to do is look at my code. It's mostly not mine, by the way. It's not my work for the most part. But if we go over here, this is the code. We're using this editor on this website. And I guess I should make it a little bigger. I have the code to automatically go to the horse racing that I want to remove for now. But the problem is I last did this in September and I don't remember where I put it or if I commented it very well or what. I don't think I did, but what I could do is look for, see right here, you see this is the subroutine for horse feed purchase logic. That's actually not what I want to see. I want to see the horse racing. And every time you see rem, that means a remark. That's just a note to self or a note to the other programmers. So I added a lot of these because they weren't in there to begin with. There were, for example, input player info. That's this section. Main screen between turns. This was not here at all before. I had to figure it all out. Lottery ticket purchase logic. Here we go. This is my hack to call the... Nope, it's not. I'm sorry. That's the horse feed again, not the horse racing. So I have to find the place where it does the random selection. Gains on selection screen. C180 for corresponding, whatever right here. Line numbers. Okay. I gotta figure out how to fit this on the screen a little better. Yeah, I have some weird music playing, by the way. I'm playing some YouTube provided library. I thought I would hit classical and just let it play. But yeah, I gotta find where the random selection of stuff actually is. I don't know. I feel like I was on the right track up here. Bear with me. I apologize for not knowing everything off. Here we go. Screen animation, sound for random game selection. And then it should go to horse racing. Which is... So that wherever the go-to is, it's either going to be this line 742 with the remark or the one after it, which is 744. I think probably 744. So we can search for that. Okay. This might be it right here. Okay, yeah, I see. This is so these codes. I stuck the word rem in front of these two lines. This is actual code, but like this part that I'm highlighting and this part, that's the original code. And I stuck the word rem in front. That's called commenting out code. And that's something that's still done today. And, you know, usually you try not to commit code and say it's done with commented out code in it. But when you're experimenting like how I'm doing, it's fine to do. So essentially, this is the go-to horse racing part. Which maybe I should remark that here. This forces horse racing. I'm assuming it lets me put a remark like that. Colon is a way to string together multiple statements on one line. So I will remark that out. And then we'll unremark these guys. And now it should work as normal again. So let's try that. And I rigged up a cool little system that all I have to do is press this. And my emulator will pick up the latest changes. Last time I had to do a bunch of painful stuff. But one thing I still have to do though is load it. Like so. Okay. It's g.lst, not list. So... But before I had to like go through like you know, move a file around and do this and that, rename something, blah blah blah. So I have most of that automated. But this step here, entering it, is unfortunately still a thing I have to do, and it takes a while to load. All right, so that's loaded. Now we can run it, and we can see what it looks like. I actually want to try to show what one of these dice games looks like, and maybe I should actually force that to happen. It could take a while otherwise. But a whole lot of them are dice related. So let's see. Maybe I'll luck out and get one of them. Easy come, easy go would be perfect for that. Win a few? Yeah, sure. All right, here we go. Easy come, win a few. So this is the kind of interface I want to imitate, but make my new feature in it. So here we go. All the dice rolling in this game tends to look like this. You have the spinning die doing his thing, showing all the different sides. You press a key to roll it, and then the outcome happens, basically, and I just won $50. So as you can see, even the built-in games are extremely simple, and I'm pretty much going more complex than the vast majority of them with my proposed new feature. Let's see what the Atari does. I think Poker Party might be a good one to jump to. So we can force that to happen after the Atari takes its turn. Maybe it'll land on Poker Party. Probably not. And Lottery, Fortune, Jackpot, $100 bonus. I mean, all this one is you get $100. There's no, like, game to it. Alright, so let's go back to our source code. And, remember we had the force? Use the force. Use the horse racing. I gotta figure out how to manage the screen a little better. Yeah, I want to try to change it to Poker Party. So let's try to figure out. All this is this thing here is a whole list. These two lines are like a whole list of all the different outcomes. It'll go to 10-20 if we're on this one game, 8-10 if we're on the next game, etc. So we can look for Poker Party, because I've hopefully commented it, but I guess I haven't. Oh, here we go, Poker Party. That's not the comment, that's some data. Here we go, subroutine Poker Party game. So it should be 10-20 most likely. So let's see where we have 10-20 in that list. Oh, it's the very first one, okay. So what we can do is force it to go to 10-20 like so. Then all we have to do is go back up here, hit save as Atari list. Go back to our emulator. New, enter. I should like macro this thing. I did make it so the file name is shorter, g.list. Ryan said they should have designed a simple card deck for the card games. They could have had war. Yeah, you know what? That could be something we do. It would take time. We'd have to figure out how to make the visuals work with our extremely limited character graphics. Though if I recall correctly, built into Atascii, and Atascii is the character set that Atari uses. There are like, you know, diamond, clubs, spades and hearts. And I seem to recall quite possibly the first program I ever transcribed as my own. I won't say program because I just transcribed it. Was a game of Crazy Eights for BASIC. And I think it just used character graphics. I remember being so proud of that. I took a magazine, it had Crazy Eights, the card game. I don't remember which magazine, maybe Compute or whatever, Family Computing, one of those. We used to get a whole bunch of those. I just typed it all in. We had Crazy Eights, and I was like, wow, this is great. Well, this is minor nitpick, Ryan. This doesn't use ASCII. This uses an Atari similar character set called Atascii. So it's Atari's own thing, Atascii. But similar concept for sure. All right, so now we're gonna run and force Poker Party to happen. Fly through this pretty quick. No. I'm skipping through some of this music that's kind of crazy to me. All right. So here we go. Oh, it's a sweepstakes. Did I set it to do the wrong thing? Well, we can see sweepstakes too. Because sweepstakes is actually probably, it might be the single most complex game. In sweepstakes, everyone antes $10. Then each player bets on the outcome of the roll of 6 dice. There are 3 types of bets. One way is to bet on where the highest number rolled will appear. If the high number appears in A, B, C, D, E, or F, you win $300. Letters G, H, I, and J cover 2 spots. If you bet G, you cover spots A and C, and you can win $150. So you can basically cover 2 spots and only get half the prize if you win, or you could just bet on a single high number and get $300 if you win. But you could also bet P for pairs. If 2 dice next to one another match, you win $200. The third bet is straight for a straight. S for a straight. If 3 consecutive dice appear in numerical order, you win $450. That's a kind of a long shot, but you win a ton of money. And here's what I do is I pick one of these, A through F, G to J, P or S. I remember through trial and error back in the day, I found P is generally the best way to go. You win pretty often, and it's not a huge amount, but it's nice. S is like extremely rare. I mean, really, this should give you like 700 if you get a straight, probably. Or like you automatically win the game. Let's go with F is our high one, and he's going with D is high. D is this guy here, and F is here. So here's the dice rolling. Yeah, I got the lowest with F, but I don't win anything for that. And he lost with D. Now look, if someone had picked a pair, they would have won because of this one. But you don't win for pairs that are not next to each other like these two guys. Otherwise, it would be like pretty much every single time you would get a pair. You could only not get a pair in that case if it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in any order. All right. So now we've seen what the dice look like more or less. I kind of want to show Poker Party though. Not sure what I did wrong. I'm not sure if it's worth digging into, but look again, Poker Party. Yeah, see right here, it should be 1020. I'm not sure. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I didn't comment out these lines of code to make the forcing work properly. All right, let's try that then. I did not uncomment this line here, to do the forcing. So I don't know if I doubt it can say, hey, if you see me making an error, just call me out, because I'm sure most of you don't really totally follow what I'm doing. But hey, you know, if Arturo's in the house, he's a programmer. He should be able to call out something. Right, so that garbage was because I hit break while I was on that screen with all that stuff, so I had to kind of get myself to the bottom here. But let's let this run. And Ryan says, according to the almighty AI, you have a 1.54 chance of rolling a straight in order. Oh, among 6 dice? Yeah, that's extremely rare. It's a straight of 5 among 6 dice. All right. Now we can run it and take a look at Poker Party. Make this. Oh, I got the speed boost on the emulator still going. Okay, so now no matter what I get, we're gonna get Poker Party. We can see how that looks. Sweepstakes, but it actually goes to Poker Party. Each player pays $20 and rolls 3 dice. The best poker hand. 3 of a kind is greater than a straight, which is greater than a pair. Wins $100. Touching a key to roll the dice. Yeah, so I'm probably going to do something like this. And this is why I want to look at this, because this is probably what I'm going to model my sort of layout of these dice after. So 6, 6, 4. That's a good roll. Well, it's just a pair still. But if I was adding them up, I had my new game in mind of trying to roll the high roll. You got a pair too, but my pair wins. Alright, so I'll go for something like that, where you have the 3 dice, and I might be able to lift some code for that already. And, yeah, let's see if I can make it happen. But it's going to be a little bit more complicated user interface for choosing your, how many dice you want to bet on. And let's kind of write in pseudocode the logic. Pseudocode is just a way of sort of going from the idea I have in my head to something that looks roughly like code that explains the logical steps without actually having to worry about getting code that works, right? It's kind of like a rough draft, and it's for the human being, not for the computer. So let's say, okay, let's call this feature, we got to call this feature something. New feature. I was calling it something clunky like high roller with bets, or high roller with buy-in. I will call it buy roller. There we go. That's a snappy name. Because you buy in and it's a high roller. I don't know. Now, how should this work is 2 steps. 1, buy in number of dice up to 3. 2, roll the dice. All right. And we're going to have, I guess, 1A, or just write it like this. I don't know. A. Each player is prompted to buy a die for $10. Yes or no? If no, they start with 0, by the way. Let's start. Each player starts with 0 dice. Is prompted to buy a die. No. If no, they are out for this buy-in step. Continue with other players. If yes, increment their number of dice. And that basically means if they had 0 dice a moment ago, now they have 1. If they had 1 die a moment ago, now they have 2. Okay. Continue with, we'll say next player. And now, basically we're going to say repeat when all players have selected no, or if round 3, so I'm kind of introducing a new concept here. We have to keep track of the rounds. Well, maybe I shouldn't be writing A, B. Let's just do these dashes as my sort of bullet points. Round equals 1. Increment the round. So now basically, and repeat, basically. That's the idea. When all players have selected no, or if round 3 has completed, then move on to step 2 below. All right, so that's the pseudocode. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is just to express the idea to human beings, to go from my brain to something a little more tangible. And then we roll the dice. And how that works is, we should say start with player 1 or something like that up here, right? Start with player 1. So roll dice, start with player 1. Roll their number of dice. 0, 1, 2, or 3. Should I make it so they have to buy at least 1? That could be an option. I'll let them do 0. You don't have to buy a die if you don't want to. I have to figure out how to handle that, though. I guess I'll just skip them. If 0, skip and don't even bother saying anything about them. Like, we don't have to say, Mark's going, and then it does nothing. Just skip them. Okay. Next, we're going to say, this should work like Poker Party. Model the animation / interface off of Poker Party, more or less. This is with the successive dice, 1, 2, 3, up to 3 anyway. And display their total. Can't type it all, apparently. Adding up all the dice. Repeat for next player till all players have gone. I guess we should do number 3. Resolve. Highest total is winner, and it is announced. Total pot goes to this winner. Now we have a thing that I just remembered, is we didn't say we're keeping track of the running total of the pot. So we have to figure out how to do that. We can say pot equals 0. And if they say yes, we're going to say pot, increment pot by 10. So by the time this whole step is done, we have a pot number like 70 or 100 or whatever. So what does Ryan say? Why would they want to roll 0? Yeah. I mean, they don't want to bet. Yeah. I mean, I could say you have to go in at least one, but I don't know. I kind of like the idea if you don't have to join in. Well, I'll roll with that. You know, you got to make a decision. Right then, let's see. Increment the pot by 10. What we might want to say is display the running total of the pot as well. I'm not sure of the best way to do that, but let's just cram that in right there. And let's see. Total pot goes to the winner. Now we have to get into the hairy stuff that nobody likes to think about. What about ties? We could do a roll off. Now that's going to be more complicated because we have to figure out how to handle that. Probably wouldn't be terrible, but it's something that we have to write out the pseudocode for and then actually code. Or we could say the pot is divvied up. Or we could say whoever bet first just wins. I mean, nobody would like that in real life. Like, oh, that's crap. Player one won because just because he's player one. So I kind of like going with divvying. What I don't like is, so I kind of like the idea of keeping things consistent with how it originally works, and I feel like you'd wind up with weird numbers. In other words, nothing works like this currently. Everything's in like the neat increments of $10. And what happens if you have a pot of $70 and there's a three-way tie? We have to figure out how to handle that. Now, does everyone get like $23.3, or we just round down to 23? And we could round to the nearest 10, or you could say, who cares about that kind of consistency? Just round down to the nearest integer or something. So, or we could say everybody loses. Keep it simple. There could be an animation of a middle finger that appears and it says F you. Everybody loses because of a tie. Let's say, I don't know, let's try to divvy it up. Divide and round to nearest int, or just whatever's easiest to do. We have to look into it. Whatever's easiest. Dropping the remainder is fine if that turns out to be easiest. Add pot to winners. And then that's it. So it's not super hard. I do expect we could easily spend the rest of the stream working on it, though. I think we've already been going for 45 minutes and we haven't even done anything yet. Besides the pseudocode. All right, why don't we get to it? Let's try not to waste any time. I'm going to put this pseudocode to my left. And if anyone sees anything wrong with this, by the way, or anything you think I should add or modify, please let me know. I guess we should review the whole thing quickly. First of all, it's 3 steps, not 2 now. So step 1 is you buy in a number of dice. Each player starts with 0 dice. The round starts at 1 and the pot starts at 0. It goes to each player, starting with player 1. He's prompted to buy a die for $10. Yes or no? If no, the player is out for this buy-in step. Continue with the next player. If yes, you increment the number of dice. Continue with next player. Increment pot by 10. Display the pot as well. And then increment the round and repeat. Which basically this is... No. Okay, that's fine. When all players have selected no... I might be glossing over slightly complex logic there. I guess... we have to keep track of who's still in or out. Like, as soon as you say no... So, let's just... we can... the technical detail we can work out later, but we're going to just cram in something here. Store that player... store a fact. Your player is out of the buy-in. I guess we can just make an array and put Y or N for each one, and then if they're set to Y, they continue. Otherwise, we set them to N, and then we skip over them. All right. Okay, so yeah, if they do say yes, increment the pot, etc. Increment the round and repeat. In other words, we go to round 2 and so on. When all players have selected N, or if round 3 is completed, and we could always bump up round 3 to 5 or something like that. We just have to make sure that our dice rolling part of the game handles that. The step 2 basically handles that. Yeah, so for now we're going to hard code 3. We're going to say 3 is the limit. Roll the dice, start with player 1, roll their number of dice. If 0, skip and don't even bother showing that player. I mean, I guess technically you could be in a situation of everybody selects 0, and you have to figure out how to handle that neatly. You could just make a special thing that says, if all players bought 0 dice, then the game should call them wussies, and no dice are rolled. Abort mini game here. Call everyone pussy. So Ryan says, so when do you code program? You're not putting in just random numbers and symbols? Oh, when you code. Right, not just putting in random numbers and symbols. There's a computer language, programming language that we must follow the rules of, and it has to make sense to the basic interpreter. Otherwise, it'll scream at me if it sees something it doesn't know. It'll say syntax error or something like that. Right, so yeah, so number 2, we're going to review that real quick. Start with player 1, roll their number of dice, 1, 2, or 3. If 0, skip and don't even bother showing that player. Model the animations / interface off of Poker Party. In other words, it shows the dice go blip, 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 and 1, up to 1, 2, 3, and you press the button to make the roll happen. Display the total, adding up all the dice. In other words, it says, like Mark W. rolled a 13, or what have you. Repeat for next player until all players have gone. Resolve. Highest is total winner, and it's announced. Total pot goes to the winner. What about ties? We're going to go with divvying up and just handling the remainder however we have to. Add the pot to the winner's money. All right. Winners like that, maybe. Oh, man. Okay. Now, we could... I had an alternate idea when I was thinking about what feature to add. I thought maybe what we could do is... one at a time you roll the dice. Like for round 1, people roll 1 die, and you have this running total, and then you can choose, do I want to buy in another die to add to that total or not? So I thought that could be fun too, but I'm going with this. I don't know, kind of just arbitrary. You have to make some kind of a call sometimes, right? So Ryan says, like when I see hacking in movies, oh yeah, they're typing all kinds of symbols and letters and numbers. By random, I just meant looks random to a layman. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it might look random to a layman. I'll try to more or less explain what I'm doing. Right, so let us get to coding. And I'm going to switch to this screen. It's a little bit easier to fit everything onto. So what we want to do is, for starters, like I did here for the horse feed prompt, I want to make a separate section. And this is going to be called a subroutine. You kind of just stick a subroutine in here. In most programming languages, most modern languages, you would say, this is my function. It's a well-defined thing. It starts here, it ends here, it has a name, but in BASIC, it's kind of this big blob, at least on Atari BASIC. There is such a thing as functions in other sort of versions of BASIC. But we're going to start at the very end here at 1570, and we'll say remark subroutine for, what are we calling it? Bi-roller game. There could be something to be said for all of the games are kind of lumped together. I should probably, well, here's a challenge here. So where my mind was just going is, it would be probably better to physically, here's unlucky 7, here's lose a few, here's even Steven, just kind of put them all together. And now in most modern programming languages, that would be easy peasy to do. I could just say, oh yeah, I can type it down here and move it up here, copy paste. But the problem is we have line numbers. We are beholden to the order of the line numbers. So I would have to cram it in somehow. See these numbers? Like, here's the instructions section, right? It starts at, the remark is at 1366. 1370 starts the code for instructions. So basically I would have to impossibly cram it in between this guy, perhaps 1362 and 1366 or something like that. I have to cram it in somewhere. And there's simply not enough room. So what I would have to do if I really wanted to go that route is to move all these lines down, like change this one to perhaps, 2040 or whatever. Like, I'd have to go through all of them and then make sure all the references, like this guy here that says to go to 1250, I would have to make sure those are all updated. And if any one of them is wrong, the program is pretty much borked. And then you spend time debugging painfully. So as much as I would like to have all the games grouped together, I'm just going to stick the high roller game, or the bi roller game as I called it, at the very end here. Okay. And Ryan said, thank you for answering these questions. Sure, I'm finding out this one of your most interesting streams. Oh, okay. That's great to hear, Ryan. I appreciate that. All right, so let's start by looking at how Poker Party does it, perhaps. Right, so graphic 0 essentially means clear the screen. Then it has the instruction part at the top here. So we can start by doing that. And if you notice here, it says go sub 1470. What go sub means is it's basically saying go to that line number. And that's a subroutine, which is like a shared chunk of code. It's typically shared. And the program will return to that point right after the go sub as soon as it executes a return statement, a statement that says return. So we're going to go to 1470. I think that's that's the touch any key prompt. That's what it's not the dice roll. So that just it's a thing that it's a chunk of code basically that says touch any key to continue, and it makes some blip 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 sounds and waits for a key to be pressed, and then it returns the flow of the execution back to where the go sub was called. So essentially it lets me reuse this touch any key stuff without having to code it a million times, like once for every time I need it. And reuse is a fundamental and critical part of all kinds of programming, pretty much. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to reuse this. Just like the Poker Party, we're going to have the instructions, then do the touch any key prompt. And now if we go back up to Poker Party, we can see what it does next. It starts to get a little hairy once you look at these things. You have to figure out what XX is and whatnot. Okay, so Ryan says this looks like what I meant by coding programming. They're interchangeable. Coding is kind of just like a more, I don't know, I guess a kind of a slightly informal way of saying programming. So I wouldn't stress about which term you're using. Looking like ands and thens and yeah. So some of it is a little bit hairy. We have to figure out what these variables mean. So here they're setting something called XX to the value of 6. And you can look below and see where XX is being used. We can just use a find feature in my browser. This is an editor I'm using in my browser. What we see here is it's positioning 1, XX. So what that means is position is saying where to move the cursor so we can draw stuff there. So it's probably drawing a die at the coordinates on your screen 1, XX. XX would be the Y coordinates, I guess. Why would it be XX then? Well, that's confusing, but... And then it's probably going to modify XX as it goes. So yeah, some of this is going to look like gibberish and we'll have to decipher it, unfortunately, but that's just how it goes. Right, why don't we start with making our instructions and the press any key stuff. We'll do the easy part. So everything up to here is what I just described. The kind of the title, the instructions, and the go sub to the press any key part. Let's make that happen and get this weird thing out of the way. There we go. We have to, first of all, make sure we have the correct line numbers like that. You can do that. 1590. It's a common practice in this old school BASIC with the line numbers to go by increments of 10. And that way, if you need to stick something in later that's in between two lines, you can say make it, the 5 that's in between. So 75 would be in between 70 and 80. And if you need to do that, again, you can make it like 1573. And then you also have the option to string multiple statements together with a colon. So I could do the thing, colon, do the other thing. So that's kind of a way you can deal with this horribleness of line numbers, which is not, this is an ancient practice that no coding today you use will have hard-coded line numbers like this. It's very limiting. It's it's a source of bugs. This is obsolete for sure. It might be the single most obsolete thing about this kind of coding. Although that's debatable, I suppose. Ryan said, how the heck does someone figure out how to make something like this? Well, you if you're starting from scratch, I would say there's more or less two ways you could learn to begin with. You would learn from perhaps the documentation, like a manual. Like I actually have the Atari BASIC reference manual, and you could just learn it from scratch that way. Or you could take someone else's code, which is how I learned, and try to follow what it's doing. And it could take a lot of hours to figure it out. And gradually you learn what each of these statements does, and it's not total gibberish after a while. Well, again, though, this is kind of much worse than modern coding. In modern coding, you try to make it look pretty. I mean, that almost sounds like a frivolous thing, make it look pretty. But if you're a good coder and you have the right tools to work with, because some tools can help you make things pretty, you can make it look nice and organized and easy to look at. There's a concept of indenting where you would have like, if I do this, if this condition is true, let's indent the whole block for when that thing is true, which makes it easier to decipher that this block applies to the if only. It's probably hard to understand from that explanation, but basically everything here is uglier than it would be in any kind of modern programming, is what I'm trying to say. But why don't we get started here? We're going to call this by roller. If anyone has a better idea, let me know. Just want to roll with something, no pun intended. I'm using a similar style, you can see, by using like the spaces. By roller, each player, now we have to figure out how to describe this succinctly. It doesn't have to be perfect, because no real person is actually going to be playing this game, probably. All right, so each player, let's just very briefly, each player buys in up to 3 dice. They can buy for $10 each. They can buy 0 if they want. I am struggling a little bit with the scrolling here. Okay. Then all the dice are rolled. Highest total wins the pot. In case of ties, all how do we want to say it? All players who tied split the pot. And you could probably write some better text here, but let's just get something going. Oops. Ugh, that was not what I wanted to do. All right. Looks a little bit better when I zoom out like that, I think. Okay, and this might not be formatted very well because I made one big long line. I could probably get into like, do I want to kind of force it to hit return, so to speak, somewhere in between, or I'm not going to worry about it for now. All right, so now we do go sub 1470, which is to say any key. And I'm going to put a little mark in here that says, hit any key or something like that. mean, we're not doing that elsewhere, but I'm just kind of writing a note to myself. Okay, so now we can proceed. So imagine what happened. We got the instructions. The user pressed a key. Now we can make something happen. We can do the step 1 part. Maybe we want to do a remark. Step 1 of buy roller. What we might actually want to do is test to see that this is working at all so far. It's going to do nothing but show the instructions and prompt to press a key. But you know what we can do is we can take 1580, which is the line where buy roller starts. We can go to our force line of code here and just change 1020 to 1580. And now we hit save and go back to the emulator. And we load it again. What was I calling this? G.list. Tell the emulator to go as fast as it possibly can. Which is still taking too long, but that's life. Well, I'm glad you're finding this interesting, Ryan. I hope somebody else out there is as well. And let's give it a quick run. Let's turn off the go as fast as possible. I will not buy lottery tickets. I will not buy the special horse feed. Now it should jump right to our new game. However, as I mentioned, it's not really doing anything. But, you know, let's just basically see that it looks more or less like the direction we want to go in. There we go. And again, probably the text could be laid out a little better. Like perhaps, you know, I could make sure that it's left justified or something like that. But I have to handle that manually. It's not going to do that by itself. But buy roller, each player buys in up to 3 dice for $10 each. They can buy 0 if they want. Then all the dice are rolled. Highest total wins the pot. In case it ties, all players who tied split the pot. This is exactly what I was imagining. I was imagining the text would not be laid out great. But, you know, we'd have the instructions, the title, the prompt, the little blips. I'm going to turn that up in case you can't hear it. Okay, that's what it sounds like. All right, so yeah. And now it ends the entire program because it's actually the very end of the program. What I should do is put a return statement, which means go back to where you came from, which sounded terrible the way I said that. But basically at the end of this whole thing, I'm going to go back to the caller. So I think that's what I want to do. Let me look what other games do. Yeah, they do this. See, Unlucky 7. And if you look at this, by the way, this is not complicated. Some of these basic games, the really simple ones where you like roll a couple of dice. This all Unlucky 7 is you roll 2 dice, and if you get a 7, you lose money. If you get anything else, you win money. Look, it's only a couple of lines here. It's only like 5 lines for the whole thing, and that is because we can. I'm pretty sure it's reusing some dice rolling code. And we do need to get into where we find that. So where's Unlucky 7 find that? Now we have to scroll to the right a bit, probably. 1470 was that prompt, was it? Let me just verify. Yeah, that was the touch any key prompt. So after that is where the game actually starts. What is $N though doing here? I have a document where I deciphered what some of these variables mean. So these are variables that store a number, essentially, the IP and all that. If there's a $sign after the variable name, that means it's a string. So it's a bunch of characters, like text, like a person's name. And another thing that's much better in modern programming is you tend to write variables with more self-explanatory names. In Atari BASIC, memory is scarce, and every time you have a reference to a variable like M here, it's using a byte. I think M is money. If it were money every time like this, then every time M appears, it would use an extra 4 bytes just because the string money is 4 extra characters. But let's verify that M is money. Yeah, so M is money. It's an array. That means it's every player's M, or every player's money is right there. So M1 is player 1's money, M2 is player 2's money, and stuff like that. Right. So let me get back on track here, though. So yeah, I want to see what N dollars is doing here. N dollars. Looks like I didn't quite figure out what this is, but I wrote some notes. Okay. Looks like N dollar contains the names among other things. Oh, among other things. That's. I think it's probably just the names, but I was a little confused when I was starting to dig into this. It might pad it with spaces. I think it pads all the names with spaces, so it has the same number. So they're doing this. Okay, what is that? Okay. I think it definitely has to do with names, even though I don't know all the details yet. So I'm just gonna keep moving along though. What is IP? IP freely. Okay, looks like I didn't take note of what IP is. Maybe I never figured it out. I see it used in a lot of places. I think that might be something like current player or something like that. IP. So I'll try to figure it out quickly and then take note. Oh, I think it's the index of a player or something like that. Where do we first see it defined? Yeah, okay. I think it is like the player index or something like that. N is the number of players I know. Let's go up to the first match. You can see in my browser, if I'm not truncating, it might be. Oh. Here, let me use that view. That's a little better. Let's go to the very first match of IP. And that is right here. For IP equals 1 to N. Yeah. So it seems like it's a player. Basically, it's a player number. Anytime it needs to reference some player's information in one of these arrays, like M for money, it'll use IP as the index. All right. But back to where we were. What were we looking at? Even Steven? Or Unlucky 7? Okay. I see. Because this is the current player's turn. This is a game where it's only the current player rolls some dice. The other players do not. That's why it's like using IP to indicate the current player, sort of. All right. Then it does this stuff. 1450. Does it have to do with dice rolling? It might. I think it is. So I didn't remark this part already. So let's try to remark that. It looks like dice rolling. So the poke and peek. That's getting low level. Poke means you find a certain location in memory. Poke means to set a value in memory. And you really have to know what you're doing. There's something in the manual that tells you that if you, this section of the memory does this thing. This is like really, it's almost like low level stuff that you have to have some external thing informing you about what that actually means, like the manual, or you just experimented and figured it out by hand, or some combination of both. But poke means to put something in memory. So at this memory location, they're putting 255, the value 255. And peek means to look inside the memory. We're going to get whatever byte is in that location in memory, or whatever word, byte or word. Let's just go with byte. We'll call it a byte. And poke again. Okay, so they're getting whatever in location 752 and storing that in the variable S, and then they're setting the number 1 in there. So they're wiping out whatever they just read, but they had stored it in S. So I don't know what that means, but we're going to keep moving on. If J not equals N, the hell does that mean? Okay, so those, whatever J and N are, they came from, N is the number of players. J is what? Did I have that mapped out here? Let me mention IP is current player, by the way. Basically, because I'm not 100% sure that's a perfect description. What was J? Did we figure out J? Yes, not. Of course not. Okay, so J is something else as well. J not equals N, then 14. Oh, no, I don't see. I suspect it might have something to do with a special case for the computer-controlled player. So let's look that up real quick. Again, we're going to kind of search. If you look at the bottom of my browser, there's like 224 matches for J. But I want to look at the very first one because maybe that'll be elucidating. Okay, that's just a they're using that for loops. They're saying for J equals 1 to N. Okay. All right. So I don't know exactly what it means in that context, but it could mean a different thing. Let's go back to unlucky. That could have something to do with the current player as well. Actually, I was looking at the dice code, which is in 1450. It actually sets J to the current. Okay, okay. So we can actually see where it's set here. J equals IP. So they're setting J to the current player's index, basically. And 1450 is for the dice rolling. I guess I should just write that it's dice rolling and not worry about digging into it. So this is dice rolling code. But it might be worth understanding. Does this read the keyboard input to like stop? And like, how does this work? Where does it put the returned value? In other words, it rolls the dice. It determines what number is rolled randomly. It receives the user's input. I think it draws it on the screen too. And it has to tell the caller of this subroutine what number was rolled. So looking at this, I feel like it's got to be one of these pokes that it's doing probably. So maybe it's S, but it is a little tough to decipher. Let me see what this whole line is trying to do. Here's something that's very interesting to me. It's the highlighted part here. This is saying, give me a number between 1 and 6, which sounds very much like a random die roll. Okay. P equals 255. So I don't know what every little detail is. And this is part of programming too. You look at someone else's code and you don't have to necessarily know every detail down to the most granular thing. You have to get an idea of what it does and how to work with it. But we can also see, we can actually look back at the caller. Now, I was suspecting maybe the die rolled is in S, but maybe it's just in K. And the rest might just be gravy, like drawing graphics and stuff. But we can see what the caller is doing. Like, does it look at K right after the subroutine is called, or does it look at S? So we can go back to unlucky. What do they call unlucky 7? And after it calls 1450, which again is the dice rolling routine that we just looked at, you can see it is, yeah, it's working with K. It's setting M to K. Did I figure out M? Is it M the money? Okay, that's puzzling to me. Cause was it saying the whole array? X1 equals X1 plus 6. Okay. I see what this is doing. So the dice routine is looking at X1 to say where on the screen is it going to draw the die that it's rolling. It's probably an X and a Y coordinate, but I'm just looking at the X right now. And so this here is saying roll one die. Go sub 1450. This is doing some stuff. M equals K. And then it says, okay, now we're going to increment x1 by 6. So we're going to shift 6 over to probably to the right. And then we're going to roll the die again. See, go sub 1450 again. So this is rolling 2 dice. Exactly, it's a fixed number of dice. It doesn't have to handle a flexible number because it's exactly 2 every time in the game of Unlucky 7. And then after that, it's also doing m equals m. Well, first for the first die, it does m equals k. And then after that, it does m equals m plus k. M means roll 1 dice and multiply this, right? So I was confused because of the array m, but I guess my best guess is Atari BASIC lets you use a kind of reuse the name. Like I have an array called M for all the players' money, as well as this M that's used for the money that we're about to add. Or really, it's not money at this point. It's just the total rolled. So basically, all right. Let me reiterate. We go sub 1450. It plugs in the value of K for us. We set M to that. We rolled 1 die. Say it's a 3. Now M equals 3. We shift over X1 and call the dice rolling routine again. So it rolls another die. I'll shift it over to the right a little bit. And again, K comes back with the number rolled. Say it's a 6. So M equals M, which we said was, I think, 3 before, plus K. It is now 9 because we rolled a 9 in that example. And then it moves the cursor to this position. If M equals 7, now that's the unlucky number, remember? That's the special case. If you roll a 7, so that's pretty much confirmation of what I was saying, that 7 is the total number rolled. And it's going to say, you lose $100. So that's the bad case. Hey, Stu, how's it going? Stu said this looks like a great game. Yeah, we're just doing some live coding here. We did this same kind of exercise in last September. I was playing with a basic program on Atari called Gambler, and you probably seen me play it before, actually. And I'm doing another round of playing with the code. So it has to be something that's interesting. If you don't like watching the coding process, it's probably not very interesting to you. Anyway, let me continue with my logic here. So then after you lose $100, remember I figured out IP basically means the current player. Well, that's kind of confirmation here because you can see it is updating the money of the index of the player by subtracting 1. And then it goes to 1220. And the reason why it does that is it's skipping this next line here where you win $100. So it's going to the end down here. 1470 is once again that press any key routine. All right, so I understand the unlucky 7. Now what I have to know is exactly what variables I need to set before I use the go sub 1450, which again rolls the dice. So I know I have to set X1, which would be horizontally where the dice are placed. Let me do another sort of a forced thingy. I'm going to force looking at, since I'm looking at Unlucky 7 now, I want to make sure I'm understanding how it works. I just want to be able to see as a reference how it really works, because I'm thinking X1 means the horizontal position, but to see that actually running would be helpful. So let's do that. I hit save. Now I can load her up again. And we speed it up just to make it as fast as possible, even though it's going to take a while. So how's it going with you, Stu? Stream anything cool lately? Stu's Game Reviews. All right, now we can run. Once again, we're forcing it to go to the unlucky 7 rather than whatever we land on in our random selection process. Whoops. Thanks for the likes so far, people. I knew some of you were crazy enough to like someone coding on a 45-year-old computer. 40, is it 46 now? Jeez. All right, so here's Unlucky 7. Yeah, so that's just what I imagined. So the reason why they incremented x1 by 6 was basically to say draw the next die 6 spaces over. So I guess if it worked with the lower left corner, I'm assuming that it might not be the case. It would be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that seems to check out. You can even look by like counting these columns, like just to make sure we got all the. Just to make sure we're counting correctly, you can count how many columns there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So yeah, we pretty much confirmed that hypothesis. And now what I want to know is how do we tell it which vertical coordinate to use? Let's break out of this. We don't want computer to play. So back to the code. Go to Unlucky 7. Now you would think it's something like X and Y, but I didn't see a Y set anywhere. I did see an X set. So could it be it uses X and X1? That's kind of weird. You would think it's X and Y, but maybe there's a reason for that. Now what we can do is jump back to line 1450, the dice rolling code, and take another look. It looks like it's working with what? Yeah, look at this. Position x1 comma x. That's pretty confusing to me. So x1 is the horizontal and x is the vertical. And Stu said, I guess this isn't worse than some of the stuff I stream. Yeah. It's much better than everything you stream, Stu. Nah, this gives me an excuse to do this. This is the kind of thing I won't do on my own. And it's fun to know that I can share it with people who are weird enough to like it, like I am, and also with you, Stu, who you're just weird in other ways. So yeah, I think we more or less deciphered how to work with the dice subroutine, which is 1450, and I should probably take a note of that somewhere. Dice routine. Should I write like special routines? I don't know. Special routines, dice roll. Set x1 and x. No, sorry. What's it? X and x1. Oh, what was it? x1 and x, where x1 is the horizontal, and x is the vertical. I think that's what we just looked at. And it returns the die rolled in K. So basically, that's all you have to worry about. You worry about setting x1 and x before you go sub. In other words, before you call the dice rolling routine, and then you have to retrieve the value that was rolled in K. All right, now here's the thing. It might not really be easy to know where on the screen x1 and x will lie. You might have to like experiment and do some trial and error. Ryan says, until AI can play with Atari 8-bit game coding just for fun, it will never truly be intelligent. Sure. I mean, I could actually ask ChatGPT or something to help me with some of this code. We could see if it works. But I don't want to do that right now. Right, so we got that basic idea by looking at Unlucky 7 as an example of a very simple dice rolling game. But we were saying we're going to essentially model it off of Poker Party, which is a little more complicated. I'm not actually sure we need to actually look at this. Well, it could be good to look at how it handles the multiple player rolling dice. Multiple players, like we had, the first player rolls his, and then it goes to like a line further down rolls the next player, and so on and so forth. So there should be a loop that loops over all the players, which I suspect is this guy here. By the way, let me take note of 1470, which I think was the the touch any key prompt. So let's write that down. Maybe I'll write it like line. Well, that's fine. Press a key is go. So what did I say? 1470. Let me just verify that. Yep. Just delete everything past high card says right. What? All right, so we got to look at our loop. Here's a loop. I equals 1 to n. N is always the number of players, so that looks right. And this is where it antes, right? If you look at this line here, this is saying for each player, we're going to subtract 20 from their money. Because that's what you have to do to buy in this particular game. HM equals 0. I don't know what that is. And then there's another loop here. It's going to position. 1 is the, did we say the horizontal? XX is their vertical. It gets the name through this weird logic. For M equals 1 to 3. Oh, this is how it does 3 dice. Look at that. This is actually part I want to steal, except I'm going to replace 3 with whatever number of dice they purchased, however many they bought in. So if they only bought 2 dice, then on the fly it will automatically handle that. J equals I don't know what that's for. X1. Okay, so again, X1 is going to be like a coordinate for the dice rolling, and so is X. 9 plus M times, what the hell is that about? I have to keep remembering that the array called M is the money, and M otherwise is just some variable they like to use for something. It looks like they're using M for a... I'm so confused. Next M here would imply there's a for loop for M. What? Oh, here. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Or that's they're using M as their index for the dice rolling. Okay. Okay. Bear with me as I try to grok all this. What's the D of M? I wrote down I've seen D, but I don't know what it is. Okay. Ryan asked, how can M mean different things? How would it know? Basically by these parentheses, right? You see what I'm highlighting? Or I'll use my wonderful red circle. That means the array of M, because the parentheses are the clue that it uses to differentiate. That says look at the money belonging at this index. Or an array is like a series of things. It's like an array of things. You know, if it in this game there are 2 through 5 players. It can vary. If I play single player, it's me and the Atari. If I play 2 player, it's me and my buddy and the Atari. If I play 4 player, it's me and 3 buddies and the Atari. So it puts in the array a number of our total cash, right? And so I is how we look up by player number. So in this case, it's saying for all of the players, N is a kind of a constant sort of ish. That means the number of players. So that's saying for all, we're starting at 1, and then we're going to go to 2 to 3 to 4 until we hit the number of players. We're going to subtract 20 from that player's money. Anyway, your question was just about how it differentiates. It's going by the parentheses, is my assumption, and I'm 99% sure that must be right. Brian said, so it's almost like the programming has context. Yeah, for sure. I would say I don't think that's a good practice. A lot of programming is not just for the computer, but for yourself and other programmers to be able to understand it more easily. So I would think it's probably better not to reuse any of these variable names, but they're also trying to save every byte they can. So they're kind of stuck with very small, very short variable names. That's why we have like M and N dollar and, J. In modern programming, you wouldn't do this. You would write money. You would say the money is the array, MONEY. For something like, number of players, you probably wouldn't say N. You would call it num players, or number of, you could even write out number of players if you wanted to. So this is all, kind of an artifact of the age in which it was written. This was from 82, I believe. So we're talking more than 4 decades ago. And that's kind of ridiculous to think about. You think about when this was made, 4 decades prior to that, well, World War II was going on, right? The really old stuff. Yeah, Ryan says, I guess you don't have to worry much about memory anymore. Right, exactly. At least as far as your source code goes, you should never be doing anything like, let me write this code in a more succinct manner just because of memory. No, that's not a thing you'll ever have to do. Pretty much. Or let me cram all these lines, these different statements on one line like that. No, you're not going to have to do that in modern programming. Just because of some limitation, you're not going to have to do that. Anyway, let me try to, if I'm actually going to get this feature done by the end, let me try to improve my focus a little bit. Feel free to chat and ask questions or whatever, Ryan. That's totally welcome and fine. But yeah, in general, I'm going to try not to go on tangents too much now. We'll see if I can actually hold myself to that. What is the P array? P of I equals 0. Oh, it's another thing I didn't take note of. Okay. Like I mentioned, hey, the array's here, but I didn't figure it out. All right. Yeah, it feels like it'd be player or something, but this might be a clue. P of I equals 30. Okay. So okay, this is like keeping some sort of a running not a total, but it's information about what each player rolled, I guess. Okay, it's starting to gel in my head. Yeah, so they have to rank these things, right? Like in this particular poker party game, a 3 of a kind beats a pair, beats just like the high roll. So what they're doing is they're sort of like assigning a score depending on what you rolled. So 3 of a kind is the best thing you can roll in this poker party game. So what it does is it says for the player, the current player I in this game, we're going to assign a score. And for 3 of a kind, it's going to be 30 plus whatever die they rolled. So if I roll 3 of a kind 6s, it becomes 36. And you may wonder why they're doing that. Well, because they can just compare these score numbers later, which I'm sure they must do down here. And therefore, if you roll 3 of a kind, it's 36. That's the highest possible thing you can roll. If you roll a 3 of a kind 5s, then you'll get a 35, which is worse than the 36. But you see over here, if you get a pair, where is that? Right, so this is the pair logic. If the first, oh, this is actually handling a straight, I think. Yeah, what this says here is if the first die equals the second die plus 1, and the first die equals the third die plus 2, so like 3, 2, 1, or 4, 3, 2, descending, or in the opposite order. The first die is 1 less than the second die, and the first die is 2 less than the third die, such as 1, 2, 3, or 2, 3, 4, then we consider that a straight. And therefore we set their score to 20, because that's how it works, right? It's like 3 of a kind is greater than straight, and the pair is this is the pair logic actually right here. If die 1 equals die 2, or if die 1 equals die 3, or if die 2 equals die 3, then we give them a pair which is valued at 10 plus the value of the pair. For example, if there's a pair of 5s, you would get 15, or a pair of 3s, you would get a 13. And so the whole point of this is to kind of elegantly handle the different rankings of things, right? And I guess the else case, the catch-all, is if you just have a high roll of whatever die, 5 or 3, then it would say somewhere here that that P of I equals just whatever you rolled. I'm not sure where that is, but it should be somewhere here. Well, I can actually do a search for P parentheses. Oops. Oh, there's more to it. Oh, that's interesting. Oh. So it actually jumps down here for some of the logic, which I thought was part of the win a few games. Okay, I kind of see this. It's using some shared logic for winning a dice game. Let's get back to that later, though. I just want to see how it handles the high roll is 5 kind of a case. Oh, this remark is totally wrong. I think I must have typed in the wrong line number, because this is continuing the poker party logic. PI equals PI plus HN. HN equals. All right, I guess I don't have to fully decipher this, but this line here is wrong. Oh, it might be right, but why is it? It could just be ordered in the wrong place. Yeah, it looks okay. Somehow it got up there. It should be down here. Okay. Here's easy come, easy go over here. Okay. So this is all a poker party, actually. This whole thing here. All right, so Ryan in the chat says the average Commodore 64 game size was between 16 kilobytes and 64 kilobytes. Can you imagine? I have watch faces now that are megabytes in size. Yeah, for sure. The Commodore had 64 Commodore 64 had 64 kilobytes of RAM, obviously, and it doesn't mean a game couldn't be bigger than that. It would have to use floppy disks, multiple floppies, or I don't know how much they could put in a cartridge, the ROM in the cart, but that could be beyond 64 theoretically. But you play a game especially like a big sprawling RPG like Ultima 4 or something, that would take up 4 discs, so you would swap them as you got to different parts, because it could not hold all 64K in RAM. Or even if it could, let's say it theoretically could hold all the discs worth in RAM, the developer would have to consider, do I want to say to the user before they start playing, put in disc 1 and then put in disc 2, then put in disc 3, then put in disc 4, and then load it all that way, or just ask them to put in discs on the fly? I would think they would pretty much always opt to put in the disc on the fly, but it's kind of just theoretical, because I'm pretty sure a single floppy would contain more than 64K potentially. Anyway. Right, so we want to say, let's get this, we want to get this working somehow. 1470 was what again? That was the press a key, so we're beyond that. We want to, well, first of all, before we even get to dice rolling, we need to just have the user's input their dice. So we have to figure out how to handle that. So let's start with that. We have our pseudocode, which is basically for each player. Yeah, we're gonna right. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of bend the rules a little bit, meaning I'm not gonna worry about naming these variables like just Q or D or something. Like I want to keep track of the number of dice they have, but I'm not going to worry about calling the variable something extremely tiny. Mostly because I don't want to worry about colliding with something else that's used elsewhere. So I'm going to actually just call it something pretty brief, but not a single letter, like N dice, number of dice. All right, there we go. I'm going to use something like that. And do I have to dim each array? I think I might have to. Dim sort of means to initialize it. I think they do that at the top. Yeah, here they go. Every array and every string needs to be dimmed. In other words, I can't just start using it. I actually have to put something up here to allocate the memory. Again, this might not be the most efficient way to do it, but I'm going to roll with N dice. It's the number of dice that they're buying for this one particular game that I'm calling bi-roller. Not bipolar, by the way. We're going to go with 6. Now, this is a little bit silly, but the way the programmer created every single array in which the index is the player number is they allocated 6 of whatever kind of data type. Usually, I guess usually an integer. Like, for example, the money, they allocated 6 of them, even though there can only be 5 players altogether, including the Atari player. And the reason why they did that is every time they reference, I have to give you a quick programming lesson of how arrays work. If I create an array, let's call it my array of size 6, it's creating 6 integers, 0, 1, 2. This is the index, 4, 5. And so I could have like any, I could have a number 1, 2, 3 here. This could be, for the sake of argument, 4, 5, 6. It might not handle really big numbers, but let's go with it anyway. 7, 8, 9. We'll call this one just 999, 888, 777. And anytime I reference it, I could say my array of 0 or my array of 1 and so on and so forth. But here's the thing, there's only 5 players, so why are they allocating 6? That's because they wanted to keep it simple. They're kind of wasting the 0 one. It's allocated but never used. They just always reference player 1 and player 2 like so. And that's fine to do, but you're wasting 0. I guess the reason they want to do that is otherwise you'd have to adjust the index by 1 every time, like something like this. And if you're using a variable, let's say I, you want to say for every player, they're going like this. For I equals 1 to n, they would want to reference like that. But if you wanted to compact the memory a little more, you wouldn't allocate 6. You would allocate only 5 because we only have 5 players. And then this thing goes away. You wouldn't have the 5. But then every time you reference it, you would have to remember to put -1 like so. So the programmer made a decision. I don't want to have to worry about the -1 every single time. And I'm going to just over allocate. I'm going to allocate an extra element in the array for no reason. But if they don't hit the memory limit, there's no real problem with that. It's just how they did it. Okay, so that little lesson aside. Yeah, so much for not going on tangents, but I'm having fun, and it seems like we have some decent viewership, so I'm gonna keep rolling with it. But where was I? Right, I was declaring my N dice, so we have enough room for 6 players here. Even though we only cap it at, even though we can only have up to 5 players. All right, so what we're gonna say is for each kind of what I just wrote for I equals 1 to n. Next I, and I'm going to put in between that a prompt that says, I'm trying to think, we should look at other prompts to see how that should work. Maybe, well, let's start with printing something on the screen. So question mark is a short way of writing print. These are the same thing, essentially. Player blah, we're going to figure out how to substitute the name in a moment. Would you like to buy a die? Trying to think of how to... So what I'm going to do is try to get it working and then worry about fine-tuning the sort of prettiness of the user interface later. So I'll just print here. You have... And you would enter Y or N, I guess. Okay, so something like that. And we have to accept input here and process that input. And after this, we're going to have to make an outer loop because it's up to 3 rounds of buying dice as well. But for now, let's just handle it for all the players 1 round. I have to try to remember how to actually substitute the name in here for one thing. I have a feeling it's not going to be quite as simple as putting some sort of a macro in here. But let's look at how they do it elsewhere. Right, you have to print. Okay, yeah. This whole N thing, that's how they do it. Let me look at poker. Here we go. N of I, like this. That's exactly what I need to do. We won't write player blah. We're going to write this. And what is it? A semicolon or something? Right, so in this game, they don't have any other text after the name. But I think if you want to print something but not sort of do a move to the next line, you use a semicolon after it, like they're doing here. So I'll try that. All right, Ryan has to go. Ryan says, good night, guys. Thanks for the stream, Mark. Very interesting. Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I'll see you on the next stream, I'm sure. Maybe Saturday night. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot, Ryan. I appreciate all the good questions and everything, too. Right, so we need to put a semicolon here, I think. That's saying player name, and then continuing on the same line. Then we're going to print again. Put a space, probably. I'm actually thinking this... I think this array actually has the space padding already. I think that's a decision they decided to make. And that's what this... The second variable here is getting all of the characters up to 10, I believe, including space padding. So I'm going to roll with that, and if it turns out I'm wrong, I'll fix it. All right, so essentially this is player name. Would you like to buy a die? You have X dice so far. Yes or no. And now we have to figure out how to accept the input, which has, I think there's multiple ways you can do that, but let's find another way. In which game do they actually type something besides just pressing a key? I guess it could be like in sweepstakes where you choose which kind of bet you want to make. So we'll look at that. Okay, here's a remark for sweepstakes. And this is the biggest, most complicated game there is in the mini game in the whole game. Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of awkward drawing stuff here. Do you need sweepstake instructions? Here we go. So this is the way they're doing a Y or N prompts here, and they're doing it by Get number 2 comma B. That's reading from the keyboard into a variable called B, I guess. But what does the poke do in this case? I'll probably never know unless I experiment. They're using it in other places too. I'm not sure if that's related to reading input from the keyboard or not. What I could try is foregoing it and see what happens. But it looks like they are doing that poke every time there is some input being read. Huh. It might just be something simple like leave the cursor right after this last thing printed or something. Let's just include it. And then we'll do the get number 2. And that's to put wire N into the variable B. We don't have to use B. Okay, so let's try that. I might want to use multiple lines here. It's getting a little bit hairy. Let's start doing multiple. We're going to get crazy and use multiple lines for our for loops, man. I wonder if Andy's in the house or Arturo. To you guys who know how modern programming works, is this like a horror show to you, or what do you guys think? If you're even there, I don't know if you guys are here. Or if anybody else who knows how to program. Like, what does this look like to you? Does it look like a hot mess? Or is it interesting despite it being quite primitive? That's how I feel about it. It's interesting and fun despite it being quite primitive. Would you like to? It's a hot mess, says Eric. Cool. Hot messes are cool, apparently. Cool, hot mess, bro. All right, so this here is the for loop. Next means to iterate and go back up to here in the for loop. All right, so we're gonna print the name and say, "Would you like to buy a die? You have X die so far." I'm gonna space this out to 1700. And now we can say, where are we gonna do that poke or something? I think I lost that line of code. Let me go back to the sweepstakes. All right, I'm gonna try this poke. I don't know what it does just because they keep doing it. And I'm gonna get number 2 comma B. Now B is just an arbitrary variable, but if they like to use that for prompts, I might as well roll with that, I guess. And so we have to say if it's yes, do one thing. If no, do another thing. And we can look at our flow chart to remind ourselves what we should do. Or the way they handled it was they only checked if N, and they kind of assumed Y otherwise. And that's not a bad way to do it, because if you only handle yes or no specifically, then what do you do in the case of anything else? You have to handle that. You have to say something like invalid input, try again, or whatever. So it's just kind of simpler to assume yes, kind of. So, and to be consistent with the way it's prompting elsewhere, I'm going to go with that, I think. Kind of weird. Sometimes I search for things that I don't. Did I like write this wrong before? Get number. Like it's not. Get number 2 kind of. Yeah. Okay. Get number 2 comma B. And this is for the lottery ticket prompt. They're doing the same sort of thing. They don't have the poke here though. I don't know. So you have to do CHR dollars, which I guess converts the raw bytes that are put into B that are read from your keyboard into a character. So I can compare it to a character like so. Actually, they do have what I explained a moment ago, handling the different cases. If you don't give it Y or N, it'll go back and keep prompting you or keep reading from your input. So I don't know. I'm gonna just keep it simple, stupid though. We'll copy something like that. And Eric says, looks like Poke 764 has something to do with key presses. Okay. All right, I'll just try it like this and see how it goes. We don't want to say than 160 though. What do we want to do here though? If no, they're out, right? The player is out. And we wanted to keep track of something like we mentioned in our pseudocode, something about is the player done or not, basically. So we could allocate another array up here and call it done 6. And I'm thinking this through because I was thinking of putting Y or N in that value. But then that's kind of the opposite of the input, right? No, if I hit N, it would be done, and then I would set Y in the array. So we don't want to do that. Also, it's probably better to just throw. I guess I'm just gonna set a 1 or a 0. Let's just roll with that 1 or a 0, like a Boolean. We have to initialize that too, probably. Okay, Eric says 764 reads the key press, and Poke 764, 255 clears the key press. Interesting. So I'm not sure why they do that sometimes, but not in other places. Oh, I think I get it now. I think if you use get without that poke, you have to hit enter, perhaps. I don't know. I don't want to overthink it. Let's just hope it works. I'm just gonna roll. Keep rolling. But yeah, we want to initialize the done value here. I think. So let's do that. We can cram it in right here. Initialize done value, done array. And I can do that with a little bit of a loop, just like before. We're going to say done of I. Nobody's done to start, so we're going to set it to 0. We're going to use that as our fake Boolean. Now, in most modern programming languages, you have this concept of a Boolean. It can be false or true, but we don't have that, I don't think, so we're just going to go 0 and 1, which is fine. Okay, so this is a very small self-contained loop crammed in this line here, and we can reuse I down here because this we're done with it for the purpose of this initialization. Do we have to initialize the other array we're making, which is which is n dice? I guess we should set that to 0 too. That would make sense. So we can do n dice, number of dice, I equal. All right, so we got the number of dice is initialized to 0, and whether they are done buying dice is initialized to 0. So then we do the loop with the prompt that we're working on. And if all goes well, this won't explode. No, I need to think of how we can, how do if-thens work? Can you put a series of commands here, or do you have to go to something? Right, I may need to go to a line. I think that's how it works. Let's check out some other thens. Then 40 right here means go to line 40. Then go sub. All right, whether or not it's possible, it seems like they're always going to some line, except here, they're cramming in PB equals such and such. All right, I'll use a go-to anyway. I don't know. Seems like a common practice. And when in Rome. Right, so I have to figure out some block of these line numbers that's going to be for the no case. Boy, it's pretty hard, isn't it? Let's call it 1800 for now. Do I want to do go sub? let's do go sub. So we can return the flow to back there. 1800 is going to be remark. User entered no. User entered N. Done equals true, basically. And dice we don't change. I think this is it. That's all we need for no. And return. And can we do else if? Jesus, such basic stuff I don't know. I'm trying to get my other case when they hit yes. Can I do just, maybe I'll just do an else if that, there must be an else, right? Let me go to the top where they have all the keywords. These are error codes. I don't want that. If and then. Okay, here we go. Number 22, page 22. That's 9, 10, 11. Here's 22. If then. Is there an else? There's no else. Wow. How is... That's blowing my mind. I don't think I've... Well, I've definitely programmed this before, but when I got my start... Again, when I started programming, it was in Atari BASIC, but I don't think I understood how fundamental having an else would be then, because this is my first time programming. But now I'm like, wow, how is there not an else? Okay. And the way that works is, you say, if this condition is true, then do something else, which means in any other case, you do something else. But wow, there's no else. There's got to be something. Is there another construct you use? Like a switch statement? These are, there's literally no instances of the word else except for these two guys. Like in the English text, it says else or else. Okay. I think we have no else. Okay. Wow. So how are they doing that? Yeah, look at this. This is like actually I don't want to look at that. Let's get the poker party again. If. Does it have any ifs here? No, let's look at sweepstakes is the one I meant. Sorry. Right. Okay, I see how they do it. They say go to 540. Let's see this. If n go to 540. So if n, if you hit no at this prompt, you're going to go to 540 over here. But this whole other thing here is basically implicitly the else case, right? So that's how they do it. Okay, so you just have to structure your code in a special way. So what I can do is then say essentially the yes case would be implicit perhaps. But I'm thinking I don't want to use a go sub. I want to use some line that's like inside the loop here probably for the no. For the no case. So let's geez. Let's say then 16, I don't know. 1680. I could always move line numbers around as needed. We're not going to have a return. And Eric says, yeah, I always faked it by sticking a go to at the end of my true block. Then everything after the if became the else statement. Exactly. Okay. All right. We're on the same page, Eric. And the original author of this program as well. By the way, I don't know the guy's name. I should probably figure that out. Did it say it in the title screen? I don't think so. I don't think that guy has, if he's still around, has any idea that anybody in the world is focusing on his program this much. But it's entirely the chance that he's not around anymore. I mean, you think of if he was probably a young adult when you made this in 82 or a middle-aged adult, then we're talking 43 years after that. So who knows? Let's just put it this way, probably at least like 60 years old, but he could be around totally. Anyway, it's not like everybody dies when they turn 60, right? All right, so we have that no case. Now this will be the yes case, but then when I fill in the yes stuff, do I want to like go to the line after the no case to continue the flow where like the two branches come together basically? I guess that's what I want to do. So let's put user entered not n, so not necessarily y, but they enter not n, so treat as y. There we go. And they're not populating their program with all these remarks, but I'm just going to do it anyway. Right, so what are we doing here? Y, in the Y case, we look at our flowchart, we're going to say subtract 10 from their money. I should probably put it costs $10 here. So we can say m of I equals m of I minus 10. We're subtracting $10. And we're going to add 1 to their dice. Do we call it n dice? Yes. Equals n dice of I plus 1. I'm not sure if we have an incrementer. Like in Java and C, you would be able to do something like this. Just plus means to add 1. But I don't think we have that. All right, so that handles the Y case, I believe. I'm just kind of referring to my pseudocode here to convince myself that that's correct. Yeah, it seems good. Okay. And then we have to say, now I'm saying 1680 because since we crammed the Y case in here, I'm going to actually bump this down to 1670. And now we're going to continue the logic at 1680. Both branches will be at this line. And I'm going to do what here? I haven't thought that far ahead. Do I want to say you have n dice or the pot is something? Let's just print the pot is... Oh, I should add to the pot too, shouldn't I? Pot. Do I have a variable for the pot? I don't think I do. I don't need an array. We have one single pot, but I could declare it up here or just initialize it up here. It wouldn't be in the loop. Let's just cram it down here. I don't know. Pot equals 0. Here we're going to go pot equals pot plus 10. I don't like my code running off to the right, but it seems like we're doing that anyway. All right. The pot increment, do you want to display the pot? Do we want to only display the pot in case of they hit Y and not N? I'll just print it in both cases. Pot is current. The total pot is something like that. And then we can print pot. Is that right? I'll need another example. We'll look for question marks. It looks like I'm the only one doing question mark space. You know what it is? Somehow their space character is a different one. So when I search for their code, if I include a space in the search by typing a normal space down here, which is basically ASCII code 20 or character code 20, it doesn't match their spaces. So that's kind of an extra funkiness. Let's look at where I'm just going to look for question mark. So when they try to stick in a variable that they're printing, yeah, here we go. They just do this. Okay, so that looks correct, what I just did. Print IO of J is what they're doing up there. I don't have to worry about what that is. What that means exactly. Okay. So what I'm thinking is just running this. It should, am I missing anything? It should loop over every player just once. I kind of have to handle the Atari guy. I guess for now it'll be user input. It won't be automated. Let me just review my first step here. Buy-in. We start with 0 dice. Yeah, we're not keeping track of round yet, and I'll worry about that later. I guess I should display the number of dice they currently have after they provide their input. I'm not going to repeat rounds just yet. This is just to see if a single round works. All right. Yeah, let's just add in shoot, what are they saying? I'm getting tired now. Their number of dice they've purchased. We'll display that. And again, it's probably user experience wise better to do some of these things only when they hit yes or whatever. For now, in either case, we're going to say player whoever has n dice player whoever has, I think this is right. Okay. Right. So basically, no matter what you hit, yes or no, it's going to say how many dice you currently have and what the total pot is. I guess I should put a $sign here for the pot. All right. I have a feeling there's got to be at least something I messed up here, but let's give it a whirl. And it's kind of always exciting when you code a new feature and you want to see how it's shaping up. Or if you don't find that exciting, then this is not the hobby or definitely not the career for you. You got to find something about it exciting. Right, so we're going to hit new and once again enter. And we will crank up the speed. So it looks like we have some snow happening here on Long Island. Oh, I got an error. Okay, what'd I mess up? Let me look at the line 1675. Oh, this is supposed to be N dollars. I left off the N dollars. That's the array that has the names of the players, basically. Okay, so now we can save that again. Go back to the emulator, hit new. You always want to do new before you load your program, because if you don't, it kind of, like in my case here, it probably would be fine. It would just wipe out. The way it works is it would say you have lines 10, 20, and 30 in memory, right? If you hit enter without doing new first, it'll overwrite 10, 20, and 30 if they're in your program. But say you moved line 10 to 5. Now you wind up with 5, 10, 20, and 30. It wouldn't wipe out 10. Anyway, I don't know if you follow that logic, but so let's make 2 players. So it'll be me and Mr. Fake and the Atari, and we'll see if this works at all. We're gonna skip over that. Once again, I've hard coded this mini game randomizer to jump to my new game automatically, no matter what we land on here. And we'll see if it's fundamentally foobar or not. I'm not expecting much. All right, so far this is working. Pushing the key to roll dice. Oh, it's unlucky 7. So I have that hard coded in still. So we search for where we say forced. We want to change go sub 1200 to my new game, which is 1580. So much for that. We're going to try again. Save. Break out of this. Hit new. Enter. G.list. Crank up the speed of the emulator. And you may wonder why isn't it just instantly loading if I crank up the speed. I think it's because it's simulating how much data it can read from the virtual disk. So it's not just a CPU bound process loading this data. But I don't really know. I'm just speculating. Fake guy. No, no. All right, let's make this happen. Thanks for joining me tonight, people. It's good that there's an audience for ridiculous stuff like this. All right, so here's my badly formatted instructions text that we can fix later. Okay, so obviously I have to work on that. I need to do something about, I probably need to do something that says, oh, geez. I was trying to draw an arrow on the screen. Anyway, I need something that says go back to the left side here or something like that. But that key got registered as something. Was it a yes or a no? I think I'm defaulting to yes, right? It didn't seem to work though. It said mark W as 0 dice, total pot is 0. Fake guy, would you like to buy? I'm gonna hit yes. Fake guy has 0 dice, the pot is 0. Atari. All right, so if it didn't work. I mean, it got the basic flow correct, but it didn't add a die when I hit yes, nor did it subtract the money. And obviously it looks ugly, but I'm gonna worry about that later. So why did yes not work? It should be going here. I'm actually wondering if the REM can't be used like this. Does it? So what I'm trying to do here is say this first statement on this line is a remark and then do some real stuff. I'm not sure if you can do that in Atari BASIC. It might be as soon as it sees REM, everything from that point all the way to the end is just nothing. It's wiped out. So I don't know if that's the case or not. I could test that theory quick. So we can do that. I'm going to hit new, write a comment, write a new program that's especially REM, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to say print or question mark ABC. Now we hit run. It did nothing. So the remarks cannot be strung together like that, I think. Let me try it again to make sure this is right. Yeah, look at that. You cannot remark. That would have been useful. So, of course, it doesn't work. All right. That's enlightening, though. So you cannot do what I was attempting here. A remark has to be on its own separate line. Or we just do away with them. I'm going to erase this remark. And Eric says, at least we figured it out. Yeah. And that's how this stuff works, you know, especially if it's a new language to you or it's any kind of new thing in programming. It could be an API or a new database server or whatever. You know, you see some weird behavior. Some command you entered isn't behaving how you expected. You can construct a very simple test case and observe the behavior. Or sometimes you can just look it up in the documentation. But this was a case where I figured it would be faster than trying to look up REM in here. But, you know, as long as we're thinking about it. Let's check where we find... Let's check where it describes REM. Here we go, REM. The command and the text following are for the user's information only. It is ignored by the computer. However, it is included in list along with the other numbered lines. Any statement on the same numbered line that occurs after a REM statement is ignored. So it actually did explain that specific issue. So I could have gone that route and looked it up in the manual as well. I did the slowest possible way. Construct a test and look it up. All right. So we want to remove REM. Some of this stuff is nice to have, I feel like, though. Anyway, I don't know. I just think it would have been so nice to be able to string it on the same line. Through not end, so let's just get rid of it. I don't know. I kind of like this one here because it's a separate thing you jump to. So maybe I'll just stick that like that. Should I ever be jumping to a REM, though? Will that fail? It could even fail. I don't think it should fail. Yeah, whatever. Let's just try it like this. Now, again, we did see it was ugly. Could I improve on that? I'm actually wondering if my rem could be partially responsible for the ugliness. Well, I definitely wanted the first name to not like appear like all the way to the right like it was doing before. Like, what can I do about that? How are they printing elsewhere? Let's take a look. Like, how can I tell it to go back? I don't see anything obvious. I'm just flipping through all the question marks I find. Kind of have an idea though. Maybe I should just stick an extra print in there. Let's try that. Let's do like that. It's basically the cursor, I think, was at towards the right, sort of. So if I do a print first, it should go down to the next line and back to the left. Sort of like carriage return line feed, I guess. So let's try that. If it doesn't work, no harm done. Okay, we're going to refresh the program once again. We're at 10:30 here in New York. Wow. Yeah, that's the thing. It takes some time to program, and you know, I'm not a ninja at this language or anything. You know, I'm kind of figuring things out, refreshing my memory and whatnot. You know, you can take a long time making a simple little thing. I want to try to get at least, geez, I don't know. But I probably shouldn't stay up super late tonight. So I think I'm going to call it like 11. But hopefully I have at least this dice betting part working. Let's put it that way. Mark and fake guy. No. Limit to normal speed, by the way. No lottery ticket. Let's go. Pew-wee, pew-wee, pew-wee. All right, here's our ugly formatted text. Yeah, so we don't want to skip that far now. We probably want to do is make it clear the screen actually after that point, because the press any key prompt draws at the very bottom. But this whole thing with the space padding is actually very consistent with how all the printing of player names works in this game. So I'll definitely leave that. But as you can see, it should probably in general be accounting for the length of the string and manually, you know, starting a new line and such. But anyway, we're going to hit yes or no. Let's see if yes works this time. All right, the total is pot. Is that what I wrote in the code? The total is pot is 10. That's obviously not good English. It's supposed to be the total pot. All right, that's fine though. But it's also supposed to print how many dice I have, which I'm not seeing. I'm not sure why. Oh, the go-to is wrong now for the yes case. Should we go to 1675? All right, let's see what happens for fake if he hits no. Fake has 0 dice, the pot is 10. Atari hits no. Okay. So I fixed a bug. Why don't we make it clear the screen after the prompt? Let's see what sweepstakes did for that, or poker party or something. When they call the press any key to continue, that is what, 1470. So do we see a 1470 in the sweepstakes section? Here we go. It goes to position 1, 12. Okay, so it's kind of writing over the same area on the screen. Do you need sweepstakes instructions? Okay, so you know this would take some trial and error in figuring out what looks best and stuff, but I could do something like this probably down the line. All right, so let's keep on going without making it prettier, and I'm calling this good as far as 1 round goes, but now we have to make it support up to 3 rounds of dice buying. So what that means is we need another loop that's around our loop. Like this is basically 1 round, right here, all this stuff. So what we want to do is have an outer loop around that says something like do it 3 times, except there's a complication in that we want to say if everybody is done, then exit out of the loop. In addition, we want to add some logic that says we don't prompt a user if they've already said no. In other words, if done, where is that variable we said? Didn't we set done somewhere? Yeah, right here. If done is 1 for the player, we're not going to ask them to buy a die. Thanks for the likes, people. This is a pretty active stream for my humble little channel, and I appreciate it. But yeah, let's add that logic for done first, because that's simple. So what do we want to do here? We want to say this is the prompts, all this stuff. We want to basically say if done, continue. Now I don't know if we have continue. Continue is a flow control keyword that most languages have that say get out of this iteration of the loop and go to the next one. So that would be perfect to use here, but I don't know if we have it. So let's check on that. Yeah, const is not it. If I break out of the program by hitting the break key, I can hit const to resume, which I think stands for continue, but that's something different from from the loop flow control thing that I'm looking for. So let me see what I can find here. I probably want to look at for loops. I don't know if they have while loops or do while, so this might get complicated. For next and step. That's probably what I want. 18. Page 18, that is. 7 and blah, 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 blah. 13, 14. Here we go. 4, 2, step. Okay. Restore. Okay, I think I can just stick into next probably. In other words, if this happens, well, let me just verify. I think next will basically start another iteration, but let's see if we can verify that. My right eye is kind of bothering me. Maybe that's a sign I should wrap it up soon. I think I went too far down. Next. Each time the next avar statement, not sure what avar means, is encountered, the loop variable is incremented by the AXP3 in the step statement. Okay, I see that. Avar is this. And does next say go back to the top of the loop, basically? I think it must, right? All right, let's try that. Oh, here we go. Control the. All right, yeah, it does. The next does affect control. I mean, it has to, right? All right, so let's add that logic where we'll say, I guess we'll stick it in between these ones. And again, we might want to just redo all these line numbers after we finish this section. But for now, I'm just going to keep squeezing lines in between. We want to say is if blah blah blah. If, gotta use all caps. Done of I equals 1, then next, I think that's literally all we need. Unless we want to say something like, well, this player is done, so we're skipping him. But for now, let's not even do that. We're just going to go back. It's going to increment I, and I think the float will go back, and then it'll basically, for the next player, do the same logic until we're all done here. But right now, this can never be true because we don't have the outer loop for all the rounds of buying. So let's get that. Let's make that happen. So how do we do that? Let's see, 1610. We need to put something. Again, it's kind of tight with the line numbers. What do I want to make it? 1608 or 9? Let's do that 4. So by convention, usually you have I on the outer and J in the inner. So I'm already using I, and now I'm putting the outer after. So I might want to change all these I's to J. Or I can put J on the outer. Or I could call outer I. There, I'm going like that. I could hard code it at 3 rounds for now. We'll go iteratively, right? So right now, you have 3 rounds. And later, though, it should not iterate if you have everyone is done, which I probably could work with this framework still of hard coding 1 to 3 and checking that condition within the loop. Right, so let's find after the next I, we want to have next outer I. Okay, so we have 3 rounds of all these guys. Maybe we want to print round outer I of dice purchasing or something like that. And again, we'll have to worry about making this pretty later. Round. All right, Eric is out for tonight. Thanks for joining as always, Eric. I'll see you next time, I'm sure. Probably on Saturday, but yeah, thanks again. Good chatting with you. Take care. Right, so I'm going to print the round outer I like so. I'm thinking that's all we need, really, if we're not going to worry about... For now, we're just going to have it fixed 3 rounds. Yeah, let's try that. I don't think I'm missing anything. And again, it's going to be hideous, but again, we're going to worry about that later. Crank up the speed with F7. I wonder if there is a way to speed up the disk access here or whatever's the bottleneck. I don't know. Oh, we got an error. Okay. 1698. I see what it did. Okay, this is the wrong line number for one thing. That's supposed to be 1608. And there needs to be a colon here to separate the statements. I think there is a way to string these together without a separate statement, but I don't know it offhand. Oops, not free. New. I'm kind of proud of myself of a little automation I did to make this faster. So basically, this is just a thing in my browser, right? This editor I'm using. If I hit save as Atari LST, it just goes into, it just makes a new file in my download directory. And so what I had to do last time was, it would download gambler.lst, but what happens in your browser if there's a collision with the file name? It adds like parentheses 1 or parentheses 2. So what I did last time was I would take gambler.lst parentheses 2 and rename it to gambler.lst, deleting the old one, and then I copied the file to the mapped drive I have in the emulator. But now I made some automation that does that for me, so that's easier. All right, we're going to say 2 players, Mark, Mr. Fake again. Don't need that. Limit to normal speed again. Don't need lottery tickets. Don't need a special horse feed. And again, this is hard-coded to try my new feature. So no matter what we land on, it's going to go to my in-progress game called Buy Roller. Round 0. Oh, I didn't I didn't initialize the round to 1, did I? Oh, I did outer eye. Huh. Why would it be a 0 that I'm doing for outer eye equals 1 to 3? It should never be 0 unless I'm well, I'm clearly not understanding something. Maybe you can't name a variable that long, or I don't know. Well, let's see how it behaves. I will buy one. That worked. Mr. Fake will buy one. Atari will choose not to buy one. And it broke. Okay. All right. Why did that break? User entered N is here. It broke before even displaying this. So, oh, it says 1710 broke. Why did it go to 1710 though? Before printing. So the enter N is supposed to go to 1670, which is a remark, and then it goes here and is done. Prints the number of dice they have. Prints the pot. Next die should go back up here, etc. But I didn't even get to printing here, and yet it says error at line 1710. Oh, it did print that stuff. I'm sorry. So next eye. Okay, I think it's probably the problem probably boils down to outer eye is not being used right for whatever reason. Do you have to limit a loop variable in some way? Like, does this name have to be sure avar? For avar equals a expression 1 to a expression 2. What exactly is avar? Can that be any variable, or what's the deal with that? Maybe I'll just call it J and see what happens. Arithmetic variable, a location where a numeric value is stored. Okay, yeah. Name may be from 1 to 120 alphanumeric characters, but must start with an alphabetic character, and all characters must be unreversed. What the hell does that mean? Oh, I guess maybe not using the inverse thing. Like Atari has this thing where characters can be reversed, like instead of this like light on dark, you can have it dark on light. So maybe that's what they mean. And it must be uppercase. So I think I conform to everything it says here. So I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Could it be I'm oh, these two line numbers are the same, so I was overwriting that one. So you manually managing line numbers is such a pain. But at least I found the problem. And I'm going to have to kind of refactor this probably at some point. Just add some breathing space. Some breathing room between all those lines. Let's do new. Once again, we do enter. Yep, so I had a long day of programming at work, and what did I do? Had some dinner, played with my daughter a little bit, got online, did a stream where I programmed some more. But it helps me appreciate my job. I don't have to manage line numbers at my job. Okay. I guess it's more like it helps me appreciate programming in this day and age. All right. Mark, and this is going to be plop. I think I have the speed cranked up. No, I don't. Okay, now we're just trying to see, again, just to reiterate, if we can have rounds 1, 2, and 3 of our dice purchasing for our new game called Buy Roller. Not bipolar, but Buy Roller. Okay, round 1, that looks promising. Would you like to buy a die for $10? Oh, I never. replace that variable there. X dice so far. That's fine. I'll leave it for now. Yes. Flop will buy 1. Atari, which again, that should be automated, but for now it's not. We're going to say no for Atari. Cool. It looks like all this information we've seen so far looks accurate. So Mark had 1 die and the pot became 10 after he bought 1. Then Plop bought 1 die. He has 1 die and the plot became 20. So that's good. It's accumulating correctly. Atari said no, and he has 0 dice and the pot is still 20. That looks perfect. Then round 2. And again, it's hideous to look at, but we'll prettify it later. So Mark is being asked again. The X part needs to be fixed, but that's okay. We'll make Mark buy again. Mark has 2 dice. And the pot is 3. It's so far perfect. Now, what we're expecting to see after Plop buys is that Atari should be skipped altogether because he opted out. Let's have Plop. Should Plop opt out this time? Let's do that. He's gonna say no. Plop has 1 die. Plop has 1 die. Here's the problem. Now it's saying blank. Would you like? Okay. So it handled Plop correctly, but then it says blank. Would you like to buy a die? So what am I doing wrong here? Oops, I just hit some key with my thumb. I don't know what I hit, and that's kind of broke it. But okay. So why did it say blank is the question. Because the logic I have here is it's supposed to say if done, the next I. It should go on to the next player. And since Atari was the last player, it should be the end of the inner loop. And it should go back to the next. Oh, you know what it is? Actually, I don't know what it is. I think instead of next I, I should make it go down here. So it'll do next I. Then if the loop is done, it should go to the next outer I. Yeah, I think that's the issue because I'm doing next I, but then the next outer I doesn't happen since it's the last iteration of the loop. I think that's the issue. So let's try changing that to 1700 like so. And while we're at it, let's make it display the dice here correctly. We'll do that. Print n dice of I. Then do another print like so. Dice so far. That should do it. We scroll up, save. Clear that. Load it up again. It would be nicer if I could somehow speed up this loop of when I make a change and want to test it. I always have to reload the whole program. There's probably a way I can do that where if I could smartly export a file as an error, if I could somehow intelligently export from here only the different lines, maybe I could do that. Maybe. Anyway, 1630, I messed up something. I forgot a colon again. So right here, I need a colon. You have n dice so far, yep. The colon is a statement separator if it wasn't clear. So if you want to cram multiple statements on one line, you need a colon. And with the difficulty of manually managing the line numbers and everything, you can probably see why it's useful to string together multiple statements on one line. Because otherwise, you're just constantly inserting lines in between others, and you have to update all the line numbers and yada yada. I think I may be due for a line number refactor soon, which means going through and updating line numbers just to fit things together better. Okay, I have a... Did I just fix that? 1630. Did I not save it, or what's the issue? Oh, okay, it's another... I did it twice, basically. Okay. All right. So is anyone else who is watching tonight, have you ever programmed for Atari before? That's my question I'm posing to you. Or have you ever programmed in any kind of BASIC before? 1630 is broken again. Ah! Well, that just isn't reflecting my latest version, so I don't know why that's happening. Did I not save it? Did I hit the wrong button? To save as Atari list. New. Let me check my file system too to make sure my automation didn't break somehow. 10:52 p.m. is the timestamp of the latest version. It should be correct. That's this very minute. Okay, it didn't fail that time. I guess I just hit the wrong button to save it. Mark and let me try that again. I have my maxed out speed still enabled. That's the problem. Okay, so Mark and Rob Bob. No lottery, no special horse feed. Okay, round one, Mark buys a die. And Rob Bob buys a die. So far, so good. Atari's going to opt out and hit no. Round two, Mark will buy a die. Rob Bob will say no. Look at this, it's working. Cool, it skipped Atari, and now it'll skip Rob Bob. I'll hit yes. And that's it. It worked. All right. I mean, obviously, it's, again, not pretty, and it kind of just abruptly ended the whole thing and went back to this screen, but that's what I expected it to do. Right. So the next step would be well, it might already work. What I was about to say, the next step is to handle the case where we don't even get to 3 rounds because everybody opts out. And I think that'll more or less work. It might still display each subsequent round, like round 2, round 3, or whatever, but it should just do nothing after that. So let's give that a test run. And we can test it without restarting the program or anything. So yeah, we're going to say everybody opts out on round 1, or maybe they'll all opt in on round 1 and then opt out on round 2. I think it should work. I can just do it on round. Let's all opt out of round 1 even. No. Yeah, so it went very fast, but it did display round 2, round 3, and then it ended. So it essentially worked, although it's, again, another element of ugliness to it is that it's displaying round 2 and round 3. But logically it worked. So the question becomes what to do next. Should we try to make the whole dice rolling part work? I feel like I shouldn't. Because I do have to wrap up this stream soon. But what I could do is prettify. Why would I prettify the part we have so far? Prettify. And how can we do that? So first of all, we can make the instructions display better. And the way we do that is by ending each line at the right number of characters. So let's see how it looks on the screen. And just see, like, after which word should we end the line. It would be nice if there was like a print function that automatically handled that. Like if it's a long string, it'll format it nicely. But mostly it's about these spaces, right? Space on the first, as the first character looks ugly. And I think I kind of lucked out about this, but if there were a word like that, like say the word dice started about like where I have my mouse cursor right here, right? If this was the D for dice right here, then it would be I here, and then C would wrap around here, and then E would be here. But I just kind of lucked out that no word wound up getting split like that. Anyway, what I have to do is after buys, one way I can do it is just not display a space. But I think it's probably neater in the program if I have a separate print for each line. Then I can edit it more easily for one thing. All right, so let's do that. So after buys, we're going to make that a new line. And make it a new line of code too. How about? In up to 3 dice for $10 each. So after can, we will end that. Can. Buy 0 if they want. Then all the dice, we will end after dice. Are rolled. Highest total wins the pot. In case of ties, all players who tied. I mean, I could probably explain a little bit better. All winning players who tied split the pot. I'll leave the text alone now, though. I just want to get it formatted nicely. All players who tied. I guess probably like this. Okay, that's pretty. Pretty. We'll save and see how that looks. Then we'll do the other stuff. Yeah, once again, I enjoy revisiting Atari Basic once in a while because that's where I got my start in programming. I used Basic on other platforms too. I've done Commodore Basic. I've done GW Basic for DOS. I'm playing with Inti Basic now, which is for Intellivision. That's actually a compiled language, though. It's interesting. But anyway, yeah, of all the basics, this is where I got my start. I've done Visual Basic. It's kind of like an almost entirely different beast. But yeah, did I speed this up? I guess I didn't. So again, we're just iterating here to see if our new mini game has prettier looking instructions. And then we'll try to make the rest of the mini game prettier. The pretty game so far, that is. Mini game so far. Once I get tired, I start jumbling my words. That's just how I am. So you can tell I'm tired. I need to go to bed soon. Fortune. All right, this looks a lot better. I think this break here was kind of by accident. And that's because this character here was the very last character in this line. So do I want to just roll with that, or I don't know? Yeah, let's roll with that. In case of ties, all players who tied it split the pot. All right, so that looks. Oh, this line up here actually looks bad though. So what's the right way to handle that? I could have buys on the next line and then adjust everything else. I could print with a semicolon, meaning don't make a new line. So the problem is that's kind of a special case just because of this line ending at the last character. It's kind of a pain actually to deal with. But I guess I gotta deal with it, right? Okay, I'm gonna deal with it. We're here to make it pretty, so let's make it pretty. So I guess it would be good if I had a visual way when I'm coding, like this, to see where the last line is. Now I know the last line is basically the S here in buys, so it helps me format it better without having to like repeatedly try it or count the number of characters or something like that. So let's do this. Then we're gonna move buys. And we're gonna have to keep adjusting each line accordingly. And this is the end character, so they has to go on the next line. They can Yeah, that's good. Then all the dice are rolled. Highest total. We can't cram in the word wins here, I don't think, can we? No. This is the last character. We don't want to go to the last character, basically. Total wins the pot. In case of ties, all players. And that goes over 7 players. I think this should about wrap it up. Yeah, that ought to do it. Get rid of 1589. You could just put spaces here to make it look a little nicer. Cool. All right, let me just make sure I got it correct. Buy roller. Each player buys in up to 3 dice for $10 each. They can buy 0 if they want. Then all the dice are rolled. Highest total wins the pot. In case of ties, all players who tied split the pot. All winning players, yeah. I'll change that verbiage later. I kind of already went down that route. All right, so we saved, and now we will try that out. Do 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 do. I wrote on my blog on Atari Age that I'm doing this stream. I wonder if that's that's where some of you folks found this stream, perhaps. Oh, I had a colon there still. Okay. I should macro this part right here. Yeah, the tiredness is kicking in. G.list. Colon G.list. Boom. I have to think of what I'm going to do with that text. After you hit the key, it continues from the bottom and it scrolls off awkwardly. What I think I want to do is what I saw in the sweepstakes game was basically do position 1, comma something. Like they had 1, comma 12 for that game. And that would basically say 1 would be all the way on the left and 12 would be how many lines down from the top. Whoa, we're in fast mode. Slow it down. Beautiful. I mean, beautiful enough, right? As much as can reasonably be expected here. Each player buys in, etc., etc. All right. So now the thing is, yeah, when we touch a key, we probably want to. I'm trying to think. Should there be like a title up top that says "buy roller" and then we put text underneath that, or what? I don't know. We could just clear the screen entirely. What are they doing? Like, well, sweepstake is special because I had that whole drawing of all the dice. Let me see what like Poker Party does, perhaps. Let's quit. Now we're gonna go to our code that forces a mini game. Right now we're forcing our new game, but let's find Poker Party again. We're gonna go sub 1020. New. Gotta go fast. Hit F7. All right, so yeah, now we're just gonna look. We're just trying to get an idea of, try to accomplish some like visual consistency for how it looks when you start a mini game, once you actually get going in the mini game. So we've hard coded going to Poker Party. So no matter what we land on here, it's going to go to Poker Party. Honestly, I think it just shows the title, the instructions, and it draws on the same screen, even with the instructions up. Yeah, like that. See? So that's how I could do it. I would just have to figure out the location, how many lines down I want to start at. Like in this case, you can count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's probably what you see if you look in the code for Poker Party. You probably see it positioned at line 7. Let's try to find a magic number 7 somewhere. Is there a position or... Well, it's interesting you see XX equals 6. That's a variable that's used by the dice rolling subroutine that we figured out before. It's possible it's off by 1 because they start at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that seems to jive. And here's where it prints your name. Right, position 1, comma XX prints the name. Then it calls that dice routine, right? Which is what, GoSub 1450. We have that written in here. Yeah, GoSub. All right, so cool. Oh, routine uses X1, not XX. So it positions that XX for the purpose of drawing your name, and then X1 equals 9. I'm too tired to figure out what that formula is based on. But I think basically it's the same as... Oh, I see. X is XX. This is the horizontal. X1 is the horizontal. X is the vertical. Do they have that written down here? Yeah, X1 is the horizontal for the dice subroutine. And X is the vertical. Yeah, that makes sense then. Okay. Cool. So that's what I got to do. Something like that. Just keep rewriting over that section. But what I'm going to do is I'm really going to wrap it up soon because not only do I have to go to bed, I found I have to go to the bathroom. So I might as well wrap that up. But let's try to just have that stuff draw. After you hit any key to continue, let's try to draw the text by positioning the cursor at this kind of a location. So we're going to take the instructions for my game and count how many down, skip a line, and remember that we start at index 0. And so let's do that. Let's force go into my game again, which is at 1570 by roller. All right, so we're doing that. 1570. And that's just kind of to get a... I guess we don't really need to do that. We can just look at how many lines I'm writing down here, right? So this is line 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we skip 1, 6. So we're going to position at line 7. Basically, our instructions are 1 line bigger than Poker Party. So let's see, how do we do this? We want to say... After the hit any key subroutine, we want to say, I guess just position right here. Position 1, comma, what do we say, 7? And notice we can put rem at the end of a statement and it'll be fine. Before we determined you can't put it in the front, but it can be helpful to just string a rem at the end probably. I think I like that. 7, because instructions are 6 lines, plus we want to skip a line. Yeah, I like nice and kind of verbose comments. It's not super verbose. Stu says, what do you mean you can't put it at the front? You cannot put the remarks at the front like so. Even if you use a colon to separate the statements, the rem will wipe out the rest of the line. So that was something I ran into earlier when I was trying to do that. And then I found some weird behavior was happening because the lines were essentially wiped out entirely. And so I ran a little experiment to prove that, that's how it works. And I also looked it up in the manual here. And yeah, sure enough, you cannot put the rem in the front of the line. All right, so yeah, now it should be positioned better. The question becomes, though, do I want to like reposition it with every loop iteration of the loop or not? I don't know. For now, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna, as soon as we hit any key, we're gonna position like just after the instructions, basically, and see how that works. And you can see how coding is like, it can be painfully slow. You have to like look at all these little details and experiment and try again and again as it fails, and then you work through one thing, and then you're on to the next problem to solve. So you kind of have to enjoy solving these problems. And you know, there's just a lot of things that you wouldn't even have anticipated could even be a problem. Okay, so once again, this should jump right to my game, I hope. Did I say the fourth? Yeah, 1570 is my game. Okay, so now the hope is that as soon as I touch a key, it's going to position the cursor right like about here, and it should look a little less ugly. Still going to not be great, but there. That's what I was hoping it would do. Actually, it's one line lower than I expected. I think that's because I put a double print trying to solve a different problem. Yeah, right here. So I think because I'm positioning the cursor specifically, I don't need that double print anymore. That was trying to solve the problem of the cursor being kind of on the right side of the screen. So I did like the double print to have like the carriage return line feed sort of a thing. So I'll just do that. And I don't know. I could try to prettify this statement too. Now the way Gambler always deals with these names is they always include the spaces. So it's always 10 characters, and you can sort of plan out your text layout accordingly because it's always a fixed number of characters. You could argue there's better ways to do that, but I might as well be consistent with the existing style of doing exactly that. So that's what I'll do. But I'll probably, kind of like what I did for the instructions, I won't write all the way down to the very last character, because that doesn't look nice. So I'll abort the line at the A here. And yeah, just space out the text. Now something looks a little weird about this, the colon and the cursor under. I think I'd rather have the cursor like here. Anyway, let's see what I can do with this text. Let's see. I think I want to do, like, layout aside, I want to do something like this little parenthetical note maybe about how many you have. If we could just this seems like a good place for a line break after this. Let's do that. Print, you have N dice so far. And then wire N here, I guess. The thing is, I don't know if they do that in other places. Let me try to aim for consistency. The wire N thing, I don't think they do. I guess, yeah, I guess I'll just not write wire N. That's all I really need. I like to use a space question mark as well, I think. Yeah, like here, we'd like to play again, space question mark. All right, so I'm like overthinking. I'm like, well, now thing is, I have a prompt that's not exact immediately after the question mark. So what do? I don't know. That's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so do that. And then I'm gonna see what happens if I omit this poke. So we can remark that out. Now, smart programmers don't change two things at once. I never said I'm smart. I wouldn't be doing this right now. No, I'm actually having fun. And I'm glad this is interesting to some people because this is actually like above average for my amount of viewership. I don't have a huge huge channel by any means. But having concurrent viewers this late is like, yeah, it's above average for me. Usually I got like 3 or 4 or 5. But yeah, this is cool. I appreciate all you wonderful viewers. I kind of think it's cool that other people think this is cool to look at. Whatever your reasoning might be. Are you nostalgic, or you're interested in the coding, or you're interested in weird things? For me, it's all the above. Yeah. But I really do need to wrap this up. 11, 17, yeah. Let's just see if this works. And okay, I didn't. Still need to improve that spacing. That's right. All right. I mean, yeah, I gotta improve that. It's not horrible, but then the question becomes: for each subsequent player, do I want to write here again? I think I do. We can have the round up here on line whatever that was 7, and then we can keep positioning back to line 9 here for each individual player's prompt. But right now it's not going to do that. It's going to do this. And then we get round 2 positioned here as well. All right, so that's what I'll do next time. I am going to wrap it up now. But again, I am having a lot of fun, and I'm excited that other people are actually watching this too. So thank you, everyone. But yeah, I'm going to call it. Maybe I'll resume this next week. I do my old gaming stream, old games on a weekday. I don't always have a perfect schedule, but I aim for Tuesdays lately. And so, probably next Tuesday. If not, then Wednesday or Thursday. But yeah, if you subscribe to my channel, you can get notified about when I resume this coding session and other, all the other streams I do as well. This channel is not only about old stuff. I kind of do like gaming without borders. That's my new slogan I have in my mind. Gaming without borders. So I'll do there's no limit to it. I'll do old video games, new video games, coding old video games. I do board games, game books, all kinds of things. And my son Rob Bob co-hosts sometimes on Saturdays. But that's all for tonight, folks. So I'm gonna do the romper room style shout outs now. So thank you. I see Eric Johnson. I see RJNC. No, those 2 left earlier, but thank you, Eric and Ryan. And Stu is still here though. So thank you, Mr. Stu's Game Reviews. Everyone should check out his channel, by the way. He has a lot of cool stuff. He does streams. He does mostly streams, but he puts up some reviews of weird things like, what do you call them? Electromechanical arcade games. You got all kinds of cool stuff on his channel. All right. But that's all for tonight, folks. So I'll see you next time. Take care.